the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David SMOAK and Craig SMOAK.
Monday, a new week of 365 Sports in the afternoon show. Craig SMOAK, I'm David SMOAK, the SMOAK Show. We appreciate your time. And a lot to get to, including new information over the weekend on Brendan Sorsby. And wow, the Big Ten flexing their muscles on the field, but also as they have for quite some time, but even more so off the field, based on the field, and also eyeballs and recruiting. A lot to get to. We'll have Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio, Ryan Mulvaney, college athletes, a law firm, attorney at law, and also Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com, and the Big 12 distribution. Craig, I saw that number. And the first thing I thought about was that's nice. We knew that the Big Ten had a ton of money, but even more so, and when you look at what the Pac-12 teams were getting, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and also obviously Washington, we'll give you those figures in a moment. Lordy, even partial shares are bigger than what they're getting in the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, it's pays to be in the Big Ten or in the SEC right now, and that's the part of this whole thing that the people who aren't in those clubs are trying to figure out how to counteract, because you can't just pull magical levers and have tens of millions of dollars appear to just land in your lap and close this gap. So, yeah, the more the Big Ten stacks national championships in football, the more they just butter up that next round of TV negotiations with however many entities that will end up being. We know the route that Kevin Warren went the last time, did kind of the NFL model of spreading it out over multiple big networks. And you would think that, well, maybe they're not going to get as juicy or fat of a deal this time around. And then Indiana goes and wins a national title to make it 3 in a row for them. And you also have now Michigan winning a men's basketball title, although basketball matters, just not nearly the extent of football. I mean, to still just be able to throw that into the mix as well. Yeah, that next round of negotiations for them is going to be very lucrative. It's already very lucrative. And if you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, then it's just not a fun story to look at necessarily, because it just shows you and hammers home how much money is going in that direction specifically. And the gap, as you said, and as you'll outline here, continues to, if anything, get larger. So, yeah, just more big picture talk, but also just money talk here on this episode here.
Brendan Sorsby, before we get to the Big 12 distribution and all the money of who got what and how much, and some more than others because of the college football playoff now being a part of that distribution, Brendan Sorsby has hired Jeffrey Kessler. Yes, you know who he is. He's the one that was a part of that House settlement, the NCAA against the House versus the House. And he is a major player when it comes to athletes and protection and eligibility and getting everything that they didn't get for years and years and decades and decades. He retained him to try to regain his college eligibility, which right now there's not even a ruling on that. We think we know it will be that he won't play, but this is a banger. This is a guy, he doesn't mean he'll win, doesn't mean he'll get his eligibility, but Jeffrey Kessler has given the NCAA some nightmares in the past.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he was a part of Alston, that case. He was a part of House versus NCAA, as you mentioned. He was a part of getting, I believe it was the U.S. women's soccer team, their bump up in pay here in the last few years. He's a big labor athlete guy. And also, I want to say he's not solely, but he's directly responsible for NFL free agency existing the way that it does. So he's been a part of some pretty landmark college and non-college issues here in the last several years. And so, yeah, he's become known as one of the most renowned sports attorneys and sports labor guys. And that's a pretty heavy hitter for Brendan Sorsby to hire. So he clearly didn't run through all the money that he had. I mean, I don't know what was in his bank account or what still is, and I'm not looking to check it either, but that's a pretty heavy hitter guy to hire that I don't think came cheap. Now, I don't know what he's arranged to get that representation, but it does give you just some pause. You go, okay, well, shoot, this is a guy who's definitely had some success against the NCAA in the past. Now, trying to find a way around gambling ban is a whole different animal than anything he's done before. If he's successful in this, then might as well burn the whole thing down, because this is a logical move by Brendan Sorsby to hire representation, because he knows that there's going to be some type of a suspension. We all assume it'll be an outright ban and he cannot play college sports anymore. I think that's the deserving punishment, and I'll explain why if you want me to, but I think that's what's deserved and what he probably does have coming. And so, of course, he's going to fight that, because he doesn't have really any option but to fight that. I mean, you've got 5, 6, maybe more $1 million that are riding on this that you're not going to get if you don't play this year. I don't know exactly what the language is in the contract with Texas Tech, but he stands to miss out on millions at minimum. And then there's the whole, well, what does your path to the NFL look like if suddenly you're not able to play this final year of college ball? And then the fact that there are no guarantees going that route either, that you'd have to apply to even become eligible for the supplemental draft. And there's people that believe he wouldn't even be eligible for that. And so then what is it? So, yeah, he's got to do what he's got to do to defend himself. All the while, he's still in treatment as of today. It's been 1 week since that story dropped. It dropped this time a week ago, a little bit earlier in the day. So we wait to see when he'll actually leave treatment. Now, if he's in there for the right reasons, I hope he stays as long as he needs to. But the NCAA is going to continue to do their part and keep investigating and figuring out their next move. And his side's doing the same. And so his side has hired a pretty powerful representative. And I think it makes things interesting. I think the end outcome of this should be the same regardless. But, yeah, that's not some shabby lawyer he's hired to represent himself. That's a guy who's not afraid to go into court with the NCAA.
Yeah, no, he's gone head-to-head with him. And I don't know about this. I actually tried to stay away from a lot of the story. I read up on him, and I saw the Sorsby story, and I saw eventually, I guess yesterday or whenever it was, the Big Ten distribution. But I really tried to, not veg out, but just kind of get off the radar for a little bit, so to speak, with Craig's segment on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I just wanted to just relax. But I did see some that said, listen, Jeffrey, all he has to do is find one case that somehow shows that whoever it was, an athlete or whatever, is an example that might help Brendan Sorsby. It might be more complicated and legal than that, but that's really what they're looking for. Yeah,
I mean, that's what any lawyer's going to do, is go find prior decisions that could play into your favor. I just don't know how many gambling cases are out there in NCAA history where we've seen the athlete gamble on their own team and turn around and still be eligible. I just don't know if that case exists to go and be found. So good luck with that treasure hunt. If he finds a case like that, then yeah, that bodes really well for Brendan Sorsby. I'm of the opinion Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech, switch the team names around, switch the sport, switch the athlete's name. I don't care. You bet on your own team, you're banned, period. That's it. That's how simple it is for me. And again, like I said, change the name, change the team, change the sport. The end goal, I keep saying end goal. It's not it's not my goal, but the end outcome should be the same thing, because I believe the moment that you just let that box open up, just to crack Pandora's box, then somebody's going to just blow it to smithereens and all hell's breaking loose, as far as if you allow just even a seedling of gambling to be acceptable at the college level, and especially on your own team. Now, there's ways they're going to fight this. They're going to cite that he went to treatment, and they're going to try to play the sympathy card, which is why you kind of go, I hope he's in there for the right reasons. But we also do know that there is some element of purpose in going that route, is to try and curry some sympathy and play that card. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you read articles and there's people straight up just saying, well, one method his team is taking is to try and see if going the treatment route will get, and it's just obvious that's what at least part of it is. And I, again, hope as a human being, the other part is that Brendan Sorsby is really getting help. But either way, they're going to use that angle. I'm sure they'll dig into the history crates and try to figure out if there's anything comparable that could be used in their favor. And I think they'll probably try to say, well, he was 2 schools ago and 5 years ago and this and that. If I was on the other side, I would go, and yeah, he was underage betting when he did it. So explain that one to me. So we're supposed to just overlook that part of it as well. So they've got a tough hand that they've been dealt, because this is such a taboo topic that, unlike a lot of other things, paying athletes or things of that nature, this one's always been like forbidden. You just don't do what he did, period. And that's always been the case. And so it's a huge challenge for his side. But yeah, they're going to try to attack this from every angle, try to garner some sympathy, try to say, well, what about it's a new era and la da 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 da. And I don't know how that's going to go for them. I hope it doesn't go that well, not because I want Brennan Sorsby to suffer, but because I just think that you cannot cross this line. Like, it should be the one thing where the NCAA says, all right, we'll lose a case here and there, but we're not going to lose this case. This is the line that cannot be crossed. And the punishment's the same no matter who you are. And I was listening to, I think it was like Reese Davis on the College Game Day pod from a few days ago. And he made a comment about, and I don't want to like misconstrue what he said, but he kind of made a comment about like he wishes that there was still a pathway back for people like this. And I understand that to a degree, but I also think there just can't be a path back. And nobody's saying Brennan Sorsby can't play football ever again. They're just saying he can't play football in college ever again, at least at the Division I level. And no one's saying that you can't go out and make money again or have a career. You just can't do it at Texas Tech this year. Like, that's it. That's the punishment, and it's pretty clear cut. But we're going to see in a courtroom how this goes, because they're lawyering up.
Paxton, I totally agree with the Dragon. That would be him, Craig. You have to make an example out of him if you're the NCAA. And it doesn't even have to be. That's a good term. It doesn't even have to be an example. It just needs to, you have rules and there are consequences. And if all what we know or see or will learn even more, he did what it's like Pete Rose. Everybody loved Pete Rose. Not everybody as a baseball player, but he did one thing you cannot do. He bet on baseball, and no matter what, and he was banned for it. And, as he gets older, and then he died, and the bottom line, I don't know what's going to happen to Brendan Sorsby, but Kim Coulter is a huge Tech fan. As much as I'd like it, I just don't see him ever playing for Texas Tech again. In fact, I don't see Sorsby playing football ever again, as the NFL is even tougher on gambling than the communist NCAA.
And isn't that weird, Kim, how the NFL's tougher, yet they are making gobs and gobs of money off of gambling, but yeah, they somehow are still pretty tough in what the rules are. And I just think that, and I admire that you can be open-minded as a fan, because I do see plenty of fans in this situation or in other situations that are similar to it that are like, normally I'd be against this, but it's my guy, so I want him to win the case, right? Because I want to see him play for us. But if you're a fan of the sport, I think there's no question of what side you're on here. There's no good that comes from athletes being able to gamble on their own sports, on their own teams. There's no good that comes from that, except for their own pocketbooks potentially. But as a sport, as far as the integrity meter goes, as far as the watching it and not believing that it's rigged, as far as just believing that it's still got some honesty and truth about it, nobody should be rooting for Brendan Sorsby to win this case, except for gambling companies and his family.
Yeah, except for gambling companies. And even Texas Tech fans have been very honest about what they think is going to happen, but that doesn't mean they don't want him to play.
Well, of course you still want him to play, but if you want what's best for college sports to move forward, then you don't want him to play. Like, yes, as a selfish fan, and I mean that lovingly, yeah, you want to see, like, look, I selfishly want to see him play at Texas Tech. I wanted to see what that looks like. I was excited about it, and I felt like it was a big move on the part of the Red Raiders, and really got me fired up to see what that team was going to look like and how he was going to play with this new pressure and expectation and scenery around him. But for the sake of all of college sports, I can't be selfish here. I've got to be on the side of he cannot be allowed to play. And I think if you're the NCAA, it's pretty simple. If you show everybody right now, this is not acceptable, and this is you open up this door, you walk out, and you just fall 100 feet into the darkness, right? Like, that's the only outcome that comes from this. That's how you prevent anybody else from doing this again. And the only people that would even attempt to do it would just be really dumb people who think that they're smarter than the rest of the world, and are clearly just dumb people, because the punishment would be very clear. Like, we told you with Brendan Sorsby what the punishment was. You tried to play with fire, and no surprise, you got burned. But the moment you say, well, he entered treatment, and I know he was underage, and it was his own team, but
and he's a star player.
It was 5 years ago, and the moment you do that is the moment that everybody goes, well, I'm going to try it and just see what the hell happens. I mean, why not? Like, you can't get banned for life or anything.
It's like the players that asked last week. We put it up on the 5 for 5 that, hey, well, what about us? And not that they don't make sense, but you have to eventually cut off the eligibility, in this case because of what Sorsby did, but also just because of Father Time in the clock and the calendar. Old Texas Tech man, why punish Texas Tech? Well,
I don't think they really are.
It's just not really punishing Tech. It's like if you, Craig, go out and recruit a player. Now, hell, you can do it in any way you want. But if a player gets in trouble for whatever reason and is banned or suspended or whatever, it's part of it. It's part of who you recruit. They didn't know. They should have known. I think the due diligence should have been better. Not sure what they would have found. But you're not punishing Tech because their star quarterback did something that was obviously a no-no. It's just that he plays for Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's just a matter of happenstance and coincidence that he's on Tech and he's not still playing for Cincinnati, because I would have loved to have seen how this would have worked out had he been at Cincinnati still. Like, does the story still come out the way that it did, when it did, how it did? I don't know, because we still don't really know the full story on the Cincinnati side of things. And that's something that is going to eventually be cleared up, is exactly what they knew, when they knew, how they knew, and then what they did about it. Did they knowingly just go and play him regardless last year, which is what we're wondering right now based on what information is available? That's the question that they're going to have to answer at some point. But yeah, it's not punishing Texas Tech. I know it feels that way. It's just, unfortunately, he just happened to be on Texas Tech. And so to punish him in a roundabout way hurts them, but it's not as though it's like directed towards Texas Tech in any way. So I saw some of this last week of I don't feel like there was anti-Texas Tech sentiment. Like, I know there was some. I saw the Longhorn and Aggie fans that were dunking on Tech. That was just trolling and like just being rivals or whatever. But in terms of like actually going after Texas Tech, I don't think that that's really where anybody's mind went. I think it was on Brendan Sorsby specifically, and it just so happens he plays for Texas Tech. So the NCAA is going after Brendan Sorsby specifically, and it just so happens he plays for Texas Tech.
Here's a couple of more notes.
But I will say, it does feel like they're getting punished, because here they're supposed to have the star quarterback, and now they don't have him.
Well,
so I know why it feels that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wonder, and next time we have a football coach on, which we should here, I think in the next week, about the due diligence that you have to have now, and how much they could have found out. I don't know. They might have found out about Indiana. They might have found out about what he was doing at Cincinnati. Should they have known? I don't know that, but they maybe could have done more. Cincinnati, they know. I don't say they knew about Sorsby, but if they did, they're going to have to answer some questions too. And this is for Ohio State, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, or USC, or anyone else in between. This is about a kid who bet on the team he played for, which is an absolute smoking gun no-no.
Yeah, and I think if he was the quarterback at Ohio State, this would be treated as an even bigger story, for one. But he would be looked at the same way. Of it's not, we're punishing Ohio State. We're punishing the player who made the decision, and that needs to be very clear as we go along here. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for Tech. It's just a bad hand that they were dealt, and you can say, well, maybe they should have known this, or maybe Cincinnati should have known that. I don't think we can make any declarations, really, because we really don't know what they did and didn't know. Like, clearly when they recruited him initially, Texas Tech had no idea this was out there. At what point they were alerted to it, I don't know what they could have done differently, though. Like, do they have to build out a whole new wing in the facility that is simply like, you already have these outlets and these apps that are monitoring the gambling for you. So that's like not something you're doing on your own. What could they have done? Like, would a private investigator have uncovered this?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
No, I don't know.
But like, I'm just saying that I'm not going to put this on like, well, Texas Tech or Cincinnati or whatever, like they should do more. I don't know what they're doing right now to begin with. So that feels unfair to say, well, they're not doing enough. And they might be doing enough. It's just, we also have to realize this is all really brand new to a lot of people. And so this isn't something that you're used to having to deal with all that often. So I think everybody's kind of, it's like COVID or the transfer portal or this eligibility ruling. Like everybody's just trying to do the best they can. And sometimes things get lost in all of that.
There are records, files, text messages, all that stuff. And oh, by the way, and I saw this, I wonder how many players that know Sorsby or he knows, and if any of them have been also crossing that line. Are they sweating bullets? I don't think Brendan Sorsby would. Go squawking about, well, what about so-and-so? He plays at BYU, or he plays at Baylor, or he plays at West Virginia. I think this is Brendan Sorsby trying to cover himself. He's got a great lawyer now, and we'll see if it ends up getting him any games back.
I mean, I'm sure there's other guys out there betting. I just don't think that they're all interconnected to the point where they're all super aware probably of each other. I mean, I don't think Brendan Sorsby's got like, well, you don't know about Bear Bachmeier. That kid loves his baseball. Like, I don't think there's anything out there to be uncovered, but maybe he knows some other guys that do it. I mean, I think that would fall under the whole, would that set off the alerts to the systems that head this entire operation that caught Brendan Sorsby. And I forget the name of them, but those integrity bureaus and those companies that look into that sort of thing, like I guess that would mean that they would pop off and uncover some stuff for those other guys. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to do like a mafioso and be like, well, Jimmy Knuckles has been running this whole thing over at Syracuse for the last 2 years. Like, I don't think there's going to be something like that. But I feel like everybody's trying to do the best they can. I'm sure Tech did what they thought was the best due diligence. They just should. And why would they ever think that, well, hey, did we make sure to look into this dude's gambling history? Now you're going to, but were you always doing that before? Did you feel like that was like a thing that just sprouted to mind? Probably not, because why the hell would it? But now it will, of course. Now you're going to absolutely look into that with every single prospect. But I can see a scenario where, yeah, very easily, no school was sitting there going, do we need to look into their gambling history? Because what reason would you have to do that? I mean, this is the case, though, that will create that to where now, yeah, that is going to be scrutinized and analyzed for every big transfer portal prospect that you're hoping to make a $1 million investment in. Yeah, now you will look into that if you already weren't doing that beforehand.
All right, great feedback from you today. Thank you in the chat room, 365 Sports, the Smoke Show, Big Lubbock, 4 games, and then he'll probably be back. My question for you, is that enough? Would you, okay, I'll take that in a heartbeat. I bet Tech would, but we don't know. And that's why you let things play out. And I can't remember who it was. When you start to get, when they sit in a room, the attorneys and whoever's being asked, all of those records and all of that information will be available at some point.
Yeah, if it's just 4 games, that'd be really interesting. I mean, nobody knows for sure. Just
mediation is what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, mediation. I mean, see, again, though, I don't think this is something, if you're the NCAA, you go and like, well, let's agree. No, dude, you are banned. Like, period. There is no mediation.
They can't give it an inch. They can't.
No, like you cannot in any way, shape, or form give in to anything other than an outright permanent ban. I don't care if it was 5 years ago, it was 5 days ago. I don't care if it was 3 teams ago, or it's the team you just signed up to. The NCAA has to make the hardest hardline stance they've ever made in their lives. And this must be like the line that can never be crossed. And from here on out, post Brendan Sorsby, if they didn't know it before, every athlete that is ever tempted to make even a 5-cent bet on their women's beach volleyball team will know better, because they know if they do that, then they are banned for life, period, case closed. And boom, guess what? Nobody will do it again unless they are the dumbest people on earth, because everyone will go, why would you do that? Everybody knows that gets you banned for life. And that's how you curtail it.
Depositions is the word I was looking for, not mediation. Depositions.
Okay, I'm on this other point over here, but yeah.
I'm listening to your point, but I'm going to make a correction on what I said, like we would if we mispronounced somebody's name. So there we are.
I'm just saying that deposition, mediations, whatever, if you're the NCAA, there's no case but the case to ban him outright, and that's it.
All right, now, one of the other stories, and that's the latest on Brendan Sorsby after there was like 3 days or so that went by and it was just more speculation. And Jeffrey Kessler's a banger. I mean, he is. He had his law firm. The Big Ten. Oh my God. This is an insane number. And then again, no, it's not. $1.37 billion distributed to their football teams. And for 2 teams, they got partial. $1.37 billion. This is also the first year that the Big Ten gave teams the ability to earn more money, get more revenue because of the college football playoff. And if you recall, Penn State was in it, Ohio State was in it, Indiana was in it, Oregon, I think, or Washington was in it. So there's a lot of money from the Big Ten. Here is the list of the distribution and how it broke down. Ohio State, they won it all, $91.5 million. Penn State, just under $89 million. Indiana, $81 million. And then you have everybody else in the conference but the 2 newbies, 13 members split between 76 and 79 million. Oregon, 48 million with a partial share. They got just a more, and Washington with a partial share, but Oregon was in the playoff, and that's where the extra $2 million. Partial shares for those 2 teams at the bottom until 2030. USC and UCLA were already locked in, so they weren't given partial shares from that distribution.
Yeah, and to be clear, and I'm sure I don't need to point this out, but 24-25 is what we're looking at. So that's why what about Indiana's national championship? Well, we'll see that in a couple of years when that gets divvied out. But, yeah, it's the money making is good in Big Ten country. Oregon, Washington still making more than most teams out there, and they're not even full shares just yet. Oregon making the playoff gave them a little bit of a bump over Washington, but they've got themselves one hell of a deal right now and winning back-to-back national championships in football, winning a basketball title. I mean, there's only more and more momentum on the Big Ten side right now. So as they prepare to go back into negotiations for a new TV deal here in the somewhat near future, whenever that gets off the ground, everybody's kind of busy with the NFL right now. But whenever the Big Ten's turn to the table comes up, I mean, they're going to take a mighty big serving because now they've got even more ammunition to bring to the table, including multiple national championships on multiple sports, including the 2 biggest sports. So, yeah, these numbers would only stand to keep growing. And I don't know what the other side looks like as far as their plans to grow even further. You see all of the rumors. I mean, we've literally had 3 years of just straight rumors about Miami and Florida State and all that going on and on and on. I swear I've seen them join conferences like 15 times now, according to some videos, and it's all remained the same and all of that. But there's all this speculation. I don't know what the Big Ten's appetite is. I don't know how much higher that could go if they add more schools, but you can best believe they're exploring it, and you can best believe there's more money to be made. They will go that route. They are a bit of a juggernaut right now, and they were already schools that were pretty well off financially that now have even more being pumped into the system. So, yeah, it's good living in Big Ten country right now, and we thought that the SEC would probably rule the way for the end of times and to the end of time, because that's just what we got accustomed to there for about 20 years. But this whole NIL situation and just all of the changes, the realignment wave from the last go round has benefited them greatly, and they're flexing their muscles right now and their bank accounts.
By the way, that was a $490 million revenue increase, 55% overall increase. The SEC, they're in the $1 billion range. The Big Ten, $1.4 billion. They distributed just a little over $1.3 billion. The SEC was at $1.03 billion. The Big 12, hey, they are who they are. They know that. That's why they are trying to find revenue wherever they can. May not always like some of the options, but they're trying. $460,000 split over 16 teams.
No, not 460
$60 million.
I was going to say
$460 million. Oh, I'm sorry. $460 million over the 16 teams, and then the Big Ten and the SEC with so much scratch. And that included, by the way, as a part of that 1.4, former Commissioner Jim Delaney, he has a contract. Remember the guy from Kentucky when people started to bark that he was going to make another $1 million a year, Mitch Barnhart? Jim Delaney got $5.8 million in bonuses and deferred compensation for when he left as the commissioner, and he got paid a chunk too.
Yeah, I mean, he was the commissioner there for a long time and still being rewarded. And I should have just been smarter when I was younger to set myself up to get those sweet consulting gigs where you do a little bit of work for a whole lot of money, because I don't know how much he consulted, but yeah, he walked away with a nice big bag of change there, $5+ million, and not even the main guy in charge at this point. So his years in the Big Ten served him well. And so I hate to bring this up because it's just not a fun thing to think about, but based on the numbers you gave, does that mean the Big Ten's got nearly $1 billion more than the Big 12?
Yep.
In payout?
Yeah, they have 18 teams, dude. 18 teams. They have the Big Ten Network, which has been a monster. And they added four alphas, even though UCLA, of course, you've got to figure them out. They got the new coach that a lot of people like. But no, those are 4 bangers. And yes, that's 400, almost $500 million more than the SEC, and it is $1 billion a year more than the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, like 300 something million more in the SEC. I don't know how the SEC closes that gap. I mean, because if they go in the next round and they themselves go and make any of the supposed realignment moves that the people have speculated upon, that they go grab Virginia and just expand the geographic footprint in the Southeast, which would make some sense. I don't know how additive that is. I don't know that it closes a gap with the Big Ten as far as the TV rights goes. And not that that's all this boils down to, obviously, but the Big Ten still could make its own moves and go out of Miami if they wanted to, right? So, I mean, they're going to have an interesting little chess match here in the next 5 years. If they make any moves at all, there's at least going to be some contemplation on that. And I'd expect we probably see something. I just don't know what that looks like right now. But, yeah, I mean, they've got moves that they can play. I don't really know. Basically, why I say all that is to say I don't really know what the SEC can do that much differently that they're not already doing, because the only thing you can really do is go add teams or win national championships, and Big Ten can go add teams if they want to and continue to win national championships. So I wonder if that number stays around where it is, that $300 million or so between them, or if that continues to grow and create some separation. That'll be interesting to see in the coming years. But yeah, when you look at it from the standpoint, and I'm not trying to say anything other than just like when you put the numbers like that, I haven't really thought about them, but you go, holy cow, that's $1 billion.
That's huge.
That's not a
massive. The Big 12 teams are getting over 30 million or so, I think, distribution.
Yeah, but in total, like by team, that's tens of millions of dollars. And
90 million compared to, that's 3 times.
$1 billion. And so there's just no private equity or private investment that's ever going to close that, because then the other thing is too is, okay, well, everybody in the Big 12 takes out 30 million as they can. They take out their full cap, and they're all able to pay it back. There's no nightmare scenarios where they can't. We know that's not going to happen because most of the teams aren't going to take a cent. But even if they did that, then what does the Big Ten turn around and do? They form their own private investment, and they'd probably be given $60 million lines of credit, right? Because they're already making so much more money, so they'd be eligible for more. And so that just, yeah, you're running in circles. So for the Big 12, keep exploring ideas. ACC, I think it goes for them and just everybody else as well. You keep exploring ideas, and you're just going to have to hope that a Texas Tech can break through and win a title, and that's really all you can do. Because you're at the mercy of the rest of it.
All right, so retired stockbroker wanted to know, so you're telling me that Penn State got more money than Michigan? Yes, in the 2024 football playoff, Penn State was a part of that. Michigan, it was the year before. So Penn State got a little extra, and so Michigan was in that group. Show that again, Rez, if you don't mind, the graphic of how it was broken down, with Ohio State getting the 90+ million, Penn State, Indiana, all playoff teams, and then 13 members. Instead of listing all of them, those are 13 members. If you don't see their name on this graphic, they get between $76 and $79 million.
Yeah, it's 24-25 again is what we're looking at. So this isn't Indiana. Where's India? This isn't them. This is 2 years ago. So this is Ohio State winning a national title. This is Penn State being in the national semifinals.
And Indiana losing in the first round to Notre Dame. But they got
that's where this
also,
comes from.
And Kyle Visser, well, they got half shares, both Oregon and Washington. Then, that's the partial shares, the asterisk that shows that they got partial shares.
And they're getting partials, and they're going to double that here in the next little bit. So they'll be just flying as high as possible pretty soon, both Oregon and Washington. And even that 48 and 46 is a lot more than most other schools make. So, the Big Ten's in a very strong financial situation right now. The on the field's very strong, the off the field's very strong. And so pretty soon we're going to start hating them. We just need them to have their own version of Feinbaum or something to like really make us like make it an us versus the world thing to try and replicate the SEC there from like 2000 whatever to up until about 2 years ago. I mean, that's the kind of run that they're setting themselves up for, is just a run of kind of dominance of the sports world. In football, 3 straight titles, 3 different teams, including the team that we used to use as the example of who's the worst team you can think of in Indiana. And that's what we used to do. And now it's national champion Indiana. So the Big Ten's in a really rock solid place. And their battles with the SEC moving forward, as far as who kind of controls the power levers of the sport, is going to be very fascinating to watch.
All right. So we will have Scott Dockerman. He wrote the article for theathletic.com. He'll join us today at 5. And we will also, in the next segment, he's coming up. In fact, next is Ari Temkin from Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, and just get straight to, hey, this is, we knew it was large. We knew it was very, very heavy one way with the Big Ten and also the SEC. But, man, how do you eat into this? We'll have Ari on to talk about that, and also maybe some of his notes from the post-spring football. There's games coming up this weekend. We'll show you that list later in the show.
And his thoughts on Brendan Sorsby, of course, as well. Yeah.
Well,
have to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, we did with him last week, I think. But we'll get into him now that there's new information. Yeah, no, we did not. It was not him. It was James Westling. That and more, man. We appreciate your time. I don't know if you will, Rez. Can you show the larger screen and the background if you want the new graphic? Derek Tonkin, a good friend of ours, came up with the graphic in the back. We'll have some other ones too. We do appreciate. This is 365 Sports, and back with Ari Temkin. He's next on the Smoke Show. QC Kinetics. It was my birthday on Saturday, and I ran a mile Saturday morning. Got up, did that. Didn't do much more than that, but I ran a mile. You know what I didn't do when I was 66 or 65 or 64 or 63? Run anywhere. Did not run. Could not run. Didn't feel like running. As soon as I would take any kind of a thought, but boom, there was that tug, that pull, that ache in my right hip. But ever since I went to QC Kinetics just to get a free consultation, thanks to my buddy RJ Choppy, who recommended it, I have slowly, and then maybe not even surely, but not even slowly, but in a lot of ways, man, do I feel better. Ran a mile on Saturday morning. Ran a mile this morning. Worked out. Played golf on Sunday morning and enjoyed that too, with no, later in the day. QC Kinetics takes your natural biologics. They spin it. For example, they draw your blood. They spin your blood. They get the platelets and plasma and all the things. They clean it up and they put it back inside your body where you have some pain, whether it's your joints, whether it's your hip or your shoulders or your neck or your knees or ankles, your wrists, all of it, shoulders. They do that for you. Free consultation. There's the numbers on the screen at 972-972-8610, 713-913-5285. And a great friend of mine who I talked to Saturday, Jerry Gumbert, he called me this morning, said he heard the commercial that I do for QC Kinetics on radio up in Dallas because it works. QC Kinetics, if you've been kicking the can down the road with steroid injections and it just works for 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe you can get help quickly, alleviate the pain, feel better in every possible way. QC Kinetics, QCkinetics.com.
Broker is your Lennox Premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
I have a lot of friends reach out to me about buying vehicles for their fleet and their business, and I always recommend Allen Samuels. You see a lot of businesses running different brands, but I really think Rams are the best looking ones out there. They're going to take care of you. They're going to make sure that you get what you need, and they're always going to take care of you on the service side and the sales side.
Like Alan Samuels always said, Waco has a lot to offer, and so do we at Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
Extreme Texas weather calls for Ray Broker, your Lennox premier dealer. Sign up for our year-round comfort plan and keep your home the perfect temperature no matter what the forecast is. Call or visit raybroker.com now. Ray Broker, your air conditioning and heating specialist.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
365 Sports with Ari Temkin, Craig Smoke, David Smoke. We do appreciate your time today. Ari joins us, and during football season, whether he likes it or not, he's on with us every, Tuesday? One of our first guests to start the week to look back at the Big 12 weekend. But now, Ari, thank you very much for your time. How in the world, and I don't think they can ever make up the difference, with what the Big Ten just announced with the distribution of $90+ million for Ohio State, which is just great, good for them. Man, it just seems like the gap gets bigger or wider.
Yeah, and I guess first off, Smokey, congrats to both you and Craig. Epic name, works perfectly. I feel like this is the type of name that's been a long time coming, and I have 2 boys. One's 10, one is 7. So, if one day I'm able to host a talk show with them, that'd be incredible. So, congratulations to both of you guys. Well deserved, and I love Paul. But hopefully, you guys are growing, and that means great stuff. So, what was the question? I'm sorry, Smokey.
So, the Big Ten announced the distribution,
of
$1.4 billion. $90+ million for Ohio State, of course, college football playoff success or whatever. But the average was around 76 to 79 for those just normals. How do you can't close that gap, can you?
No, but I don't know that that's news because regardless of what the specific numbers were going to be, the Big 12 was always going to be at probably half as much. Maybe the bigger story here is that the SEC also trails the Big Ten, and that's fairly substantial because I'm not sure that we knew, based on just the raw numbers, that the SEC would be taking home basically 60 to Purdue's, we'll call it Purdue's 80, meaning, that the top end of the SEC is getting 20 million less than the bottom end of the Big Ten. I would say that's more substantial because we've seen SEC teams go crazy over the success of Nick Saban, meaning we saw SEC teams fire and hire their coaches into oblivion because of the success of Saban. And so I'm curious now what they do, knowing that there's a $20+ million chasm every year that compounds. But that's the big issue here, Smokey, is, there's no way that a Redbird investment of one time $30 million is going to make up the chasm that exists. They need $30 million every year to make that up. And that's where the rubber meets the road here. It's not just the 1 year difference. It's the compounding difference every single year. So look, this is not going to be a surprise, I wouldn't imagine, to many from a Big 12 perspective, given that when these deals were signed, and when they came to bear, it was going to be half as much, maybe less than what the SEC and the Big 10 gets. It looks now like the Big 10 is sort of in a stratosphere by itself. And, the good news out of the Redbird deal is that Redbird owns 22% of Paramount, which is in the process of purchasing Warner Brothers Discovery, TNT, TBS. So I would say the most impactful aspect of the Redbird deal with the Big 12 is, it really helps to give the Big 12 their best foot forward when it comes to their next TV negotiations, which I imagine will be aided by Redbird and their relationship with Paramount.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think the more interesting thing at this point is how much of a gap can the Big Ten create between themselves and the SEC, especially with negotiations coming up, because that's a story I didn't think we'd necessarily be talking about. But yeah, it is daunting when you look at it, and there is no closing the gap. But as you mentioned, there is that broadcast part of this Redbird deal. Other than that, though, how do you sort of view it now that it's all official? Do you feel like there's going to be many, if any, of the Big 12 teams that step up to take this up to $30 million line of credit? We know Utah probably won't, since they've got their own little arrangement, which is interesting in its own right. But you think this is just more the long play for everybody, or do you suspect we'll see some teams want to dip into these coffers a little bit?
It would certainly surprise me if it was 0 for 16, but I also don't know, that anybody takes it. So it's like, I say that to say, like, I just don't see how it becomes attractive to anybody. In fact, UCF was maybe one of the candidates, and they were one of the first to come out and say that they weren't going to be taking it. I mean, it's a pretty high dollar amount. And again, when you're borrowing against tomorrow on a deal where it's like, from a Big 12 perspective, like, you're playing catch up to the Big 10 and the SEC. Does borrowing $30 million today against tomorrow's revenue make any sense? Probably not, because long term, you're actually going to be giving up substantially more than that $30 million based, again, on that 10% interest rate on that note. Now, who knows the particular specifics of it and, what that looks like. But based on just what we've seen, I can't imagine anybody takes that at the price of, a 10% interest rate. And I'd imagine most schools, if they're looking for a cash infusion, are going to be looking to do what Utah is doing, which is probably something, that's going to be a little bit more friendly in terms of long term. But yeah, I don't see like one $30 million investment making that much of a difference, and especially when it's going to cost you, what it's going to end up costing on that interest rate. So, I think more than anything, the Redbird deal, helps to solidify future business partnerships. The Redbird relationship with the Big 12 has already led to, a huge deal with Venmo, PayPal, a huge deal, with the pre-conference tournament in Vegas, and the Big 12's inclusion in that. So I'd imagine, like, more than that, their Redbird is going to bring more to the table that will only end up meaning more money in the pockets of Big 12 members. And then, of course, the TV deal is the biggest piece. But look, I mean, it's substantial. But I think also, like, this shouldn't be a surprise to most athletic departments. They knew that when compared to the Big 10 or the SEC, it was going to be pretty substantial in terms of, where the Big 12 was. Imagine how much worse it is for the American Athletic Conference, for the new Pac-12, for all these others that are looking up at the Big 12 and the ACC, wondering how they catch up to the Big 12 and the ACC. So it could always be worse. And I think, the Big 12 has to continue to look for ways to, enrich the conference, enrich their coffers, while not subtracting, from the larger piece, because anything that the Big 12 implements, for the most part, the SEC or the Big 10 can do too. So they have to get creative on the ways in which they're infusing more cash, because otherwise the Big 10 and the SEC will just do the exact same thing, and now you're back at square one.
Do you know, Ari, and I did not ask, I should have texted a couple of people, even within the conference, this question. Remember Endeavor, that was a part of a lot of what the Big 12 was doing? They were hooked in with what your market ideas and marketing and growth and realignment. I don't know if they're still a part of that. So what would be the difference? Because there's a lot of, with this private whatever it's called, I don't want to use the Redbird Capital, that was also about marketing ideas and more involved. And I don't know the difference between what Endeavor was doing for the Big 12 and what Redbird Capital can do.
It's a great question, Smokey. Until you mentioned it, I totally forgot about that. It's a great point.
I'm going to email somebody right now.
Endeavor, I believe, is the parent company of WME Sports and IMG Media. So Wasserman Media and IMG basically is Endeavor. So I don't know if there's an ongoing relationship with them. I do know that when Endeavor got involved, it was more to maximize the TV part of it with their experience, IMG and WME in that space. So I'm thinking this was more of a help Brett Yormark understand the value here and how to present it, and provide materials, provide insight into doing so. And it feels like the next round in 2030, 2031 will be led with the assistance of Redbird. So I don't know that Endeavor will continue to be a part of this, and especially given now I'm not even sure what that relationship is with IMG, considering the Learfield IMG stuff. So there's a lot of private equity dollars right now flowing through college sports, which shows you and tells you a lot, right? I mean, as stagnant, quote unquote, as the Big 12's growth looks relative to the Big 10 and the SEC, like there's a reason why Redbird is investing the way that they are in college sports. There's a reason why any of these private equity firms or investment capital groups are trying to get in, because they recognize the growth potential and how untapped it is. I think those are two humongous factors here. One, that like there is growth, that live sports just has incredible growth, and especially live sports with the investment level that fans of college sports have because they went to these schools, and they're always going to support those schools, especially when it comes to football and men's basketball. So I just think like that potential, the long-term growth of sports, and then the fact that it's so untapped, that for years the commercial aspect of college sports was so untapped and so underappreciated, that there's just a huge opportunity there, which is why I think all of these companies want in to some degree, and why the Big 12 was able to partner with an Endeavor initially, and the Big 12 was able to partner with Redbird now.
Yeah, Endeavor, to the best of my knowledge, was there to help out with realignment and explore those options, and also help with the rebranding and doing all those things in light of realignment. So that's what Endeavor was doing. Now Endeavor's undergone all sorts of changes with WME Group and all of that. And best I can tell, the folks running Endeavor are more caught up in UFC and WWE and TKO and that whole enterprise that's since launched. So yeah, there's been some changes, but that's more of, they were trying to market, I think, the changeover and help out with navigating realignment opportunities. And then this is just like private investment firm, here's some cash and go do with it what you will. But yeah, it's a part of the sport I never thought we'd have to learn, Ari. That's for sure. I never thought, but I'm also in the process of getting my unofficial law degree as well. So I'm going to be just
what you're doing late at night.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But no, I mean, there's so many things you have to learn now regarding this sport, but
it's insane. Yeah, it's insane.
It's crazy. So we'll see what happens with Redbird. But yeah, so far, no biters on the Big 12 side of things. There was a rather large story that dropped a week ago today coming out of Lubbock, Texas, Ari, the Brendan Sorsby story. We've seen the latest update. He's hired a very prominent lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, to represent him for whatever awaits as far as a suspension or a ban goes. Just your thoughts going back to a week when you first heard the news, and then subsequently just your thoughts since as this story has evolved, and what big picture you think it means from your standpoint for Texas Tech football, but also maybe for Brendan Sorsby.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, Craig. I mean, I think you start with, on the heels of what was a incredible weekend for Texas Tech, 9 players drafted, setting a record. And then on top of that, kind of being in position for the Big 12, like in Ohio State or like a Georgia, where, you have 9 guys or double-digit guys drafted, and then you're still the favorites the following season. I mean, that's where Texas Tech is. I mean, 9 players drafted coming out of that, and they're still the favorites in the Big 12, which is, again, kind of like where Georgia and Ohio State have been for quite some time. So like on the heels of what was a incredibly successful draft for them, you get this news and it's suddenly like, okay, what is this deal for their ceiling in 2026, 2027? And, while I still think they are very much in the driver's seat to win a Big 12 championship, their ability to get far into the playoff and win a game or win multiple games, I think depends on, the viability of the quarterback position. As we learned last year, like they were really good, Ron Baird and Morton, but they could not make up for the fact that when a defense keys in on your weaknesses, Morton looked very mortal. And so, I think number one, I wonder if Tech sees a path here because it seems pretty black and white to me. And it seems like, based upon what's been discussed and what's been reported, that he's not going to be able to play college football again. And this is not something that the NFL or college football takes lightly. And I think nobody's died here, but there's very much it seems like a Len Bias type situation to where this could have huge implications on, the way these things play out. There was an example of this for Brennan Sorsby with Hunter Deckers. And yet, despite having that in front of him, he still made decisions here to put together thousands of bets as being reported. And I think many look at it as not a big deal. Obviously they're marketing these sports books, across all of college sports media. And so there's got to be a level of brand confusion over this, especially if you're a college student and all your friends that are around you are doing it and you're not able to. But you got to have the willpower because this is a very serious deal, and not just in terms of his trajectory in college sports, but the NFL is not going to look too kindly on this either. In fact, you can look at some of the things the NFL overlooks versus something like this that they're not going to. They just suspended Calvin Ridley for an entire season. They cannot have the outcomes of their games being questioned or compromised because of gambling. Sports has to further itself from gambling, especially from the athletes involved. And so Sorsby's idea here of going to the supplemental draft, I just don't see it. Maybe there's enough talent there that they're going to be willing to overlook it. But man, this just feels like not something the NFL is jumping for joy over in terms of, trying to give up a future pick to take a flyer on a guy that sort of doesn't really have any leverage at this point. So maybe Tech sees a path here. Maybe Tech, ultimately after the ruling comes down from the NCAA, maybe they sue because that's what's seemed to work against the NCAA. You get an injunction. Maybe he plays this year. Who knows? But yeah, this is an absolute mess. I think, again, big picture, this is going to be a huge turning point and needs to be for many athletes to recognize that this is a big deal. And it's not just a big deal as it pertains to your eligibility in college, but the NFL doesn't look very positively on wagering, especially the sports you're playing either. So, Sorsby may not have had a sense of how much damage he was doing to himself, but I'm sure now he does. And I hope that others are watching.
Man, Ari, I asked this question last week, and I'm sure the answer is they have to or have, but do you think colleges now have to add somebody else to their athletic department staff as somebody who's a private investigator or someone who checks the background, especially of the high level type of NIL signing?
Yeah, but the issue with that, Smokey, is that these things come together very quickly. And, it is speed dating. And it's if you don't make an offer, it's like a house on the market that everybody wants, right? If you don't make an offer right away, you might lose the house. And so, I think with Sorsby, you probably could have anticipated, if you're Tech, that you were going to be interested in him. So, even though the conversations probably didn't take very long, 24 to 48 hours in order to get it done. I'm sure there was a buildup towards it over the final month or so, we'll say, just to be safe, but who knows how much time you have. So yeah, I think, there's certainly going to be some players that come together in short periods of time where you're probably just not going to have the ability to privately investigate them as much as you'd like to. But I think in this situation where you anticipate adding a Sorsby, and again, I think just based on what we've heard out of Lubbock, this didn't just come together in the 24 to 48 hours it took to officially ink him. you probably needed to be doing some due diligence. You also have a situation in which, the Big 12 requires all of its players to download an app that's on their phone that basically monitors whether or not they're placing wagers and signing up for accounts. I'm assuming the technology involved here is tied strictly to signing up for accounts, and Sorsby, since he had an account, was sort of around that Big 12 ruling on it. But look, I think more than anything specific to this is like there has to be an understanding of like I get how widespread sports wagering has become and how easy it is because it's on your phone. But I think like this cannot be understated to players. Like it will ruin your life and career because it's just not worth it. And, so getting involved with it, as fun as it might be in order to make sports in the moment feel better and have more stakes, like you may not even have a career because the NFL is looking for reasons not to draft guys. And this is going to be at the front of every one of them. They do not want guys that have a history here of wagering and wagering to a degree like he was. That's such a red flag. And I just don't know that players have any sense of that.
So I think one way to hammer that home is he gets banned for life, and every player after that goes, all right, well, we're not going to do anything like that. And
right.
That would be the clearest way to send the message. But Ari, before we let you go, man, you've given us a good amount of your time as usual. I know spring ball can kind of be whatever it is you want to make of it. Like some people don't care at all anymore. Some people still get kind of into it. The Big 12's wrapped up now at this point. All 16 teams, I believe, are done. UCF was the last one. Anything that came out of spring that changed your opinion on one issue or one team more than when we started here? Anything of note to exit into the offseason officially?
It's a great question. I guess I would say no, only from the standpoint. Only from the standpoint of what you just outlined, which is like, it's in many ways like preseason NFL football to where sometimes there's a correlation. You can have a good spring and have a good season. Sometimes there's no correlation whatsoever. You can have a good spring and completely disappear in the regular season. Same is true with preseason football. Since there literally is no correlation, you could draw the parallels between good spring, good season versus not good spring and bad season, or vice versa, good spring, bad season, right? So all of those are in play because we've seen all of those happen. So, I would say BYU should probably be the favorite. I thought they were very much in the conversation even prior to the Brendan Sorsby stuff, based on who they bring back, what they bring back, and then more than anything, the fact that Bear Bachmeier had the season that he had without even being at BYU last spring. So now with a full offseason, a full spring with Aaron Roderick's offense, the same offensive coordinator, I think Bear Bachmeier is a name that not a lot of people know nationally, that he's about to explode onto the scene this season in his true sophomore year. But look, there's some injuries. There's certain guys that are trying to fight for eligibility. So I think there's a lot of subplots to spring, and then who had a good spring, who didn't. It's crazy to think that Brendan Sorsby was slinging it to Micah Hudson for 2 touchdowns in a spring game, and then a George Strait concert at Jones AT&T, and suddenly everything is flipped on its head. And it is wild to me that Sorsby, I guess, had no indication or inclination that was happening. It's insane to me.
Yeah, it's a big mess in the conference. A star player with a team that's expected to win it again, and it's kind of a hickey. We'll see how. I think they'll be fine if they can get Hammond. They got to get him back and healthy and upright too. He's a hell of a player. Ari, great to have you on, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You too. Congrats, guys. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for making me a part of the Smoke Show. Love it. This is great, guys. Congrats.
And we will continue to do so because it's a great segment. There's a lot right there. A bunch with Ari Temkin on from the revenue distribution to what really is the Redbird Capital compared to Endeavor, which you guys both kind of had that. And then, of course, the Sorsby story and more.
Yeah, I don't think the Redbird Endeavor thing, I know why it comes across as kind of confusing, but I think it's pretty clear cut when you look at it. Endeavor was specifically brought in to help out with realignment.
But they weren't giving money to the conference.
No, they didn't give money. They got money, and they got to be advisors and to help the conference navigate its way through all of the craziness of the Pac-12 and the departures of Texas and Oklahoma and all that stuff. Like, they helped wade through those waters. They were, I would say, also the driving force in like changing the logos and doing the commercials a certain type of way to try to make it feel like it's new and it's fresh. And let's go do the Mexico City games, and let's go, like, they were the idea factory to try to rebrand and remarket and just sort of amp up the Big 12. And they were paid to do that. Whereas with Redbird, it's Redbird is investing themselves into the conference office, but also offering these lifelines. So the Endeavor wasn't offering Iowa State $30 million. Endeavor was just saying, like, Iowa State is part of these other teams and teams that we're trying to, in so many ways, help you bring on board. This is what that could look like, or this is why that would be an attractive option for the Arizona schools, or things like that. So, yeah, two totally separate entities. And Endeavor, I don't even know how much that name is even used anymore. I'm so used to hearing most of their news come through TKO, which is the UFC WWE umbrella that they have currently. Boxing now part of that as well, with Zuffa Boxing, which, if you haven't heard of it, most people haven't. And I don't know if they ever will. I don't know how they're trying to work the laws. They're working the government right now on the Muhammad Ali Act, and I think if and when that goes their way, then Zuffa will have a bit more power. But yeah, they've found it kind of hard entry into the boxing world so far, but that's a part of it. So it's two completely different things, but it's understandable. We weren't raised as college sports fans to learn about all these outlets and their marketing abilities and all these types of things. But that last round of realignment broke all of our brains in different ways, to where now, between that and all the rules changes, we're having to get minors in law and in sports law, and then we're having to also understand marketing and TV deals, and yeah, it's a wide world of sports out there besides just what happens on the field, and has become a much bigger world in the last 5 years, especially.
Thank you very much. Thank you as well. We're not done. We got a lot to get to. Ryan Mulvaney, who represents athletes, college athletes, his thoughts about a lot that's going on. Bob Thompson, by the way, remember Bob Thompson, the former Fox Sports CEO, he was right there on the ground floor when the Big Ten Conference Network was put together. And he'll join us today, not today, but join us later in the week on Wednesday. Roger Dodger, I know it was a lack of playoff appearances for USC to get less than Penn State. I wonder if the distribution changes year to year, and the answer is the number will only go up. Eventually, Oregon and Washington will get full shares, which could drop the number, but by then, the Big Ten will have probably a new TV deal anyway. So if you're getting $76 million now, you're not going to get like 68 next year. If you get in the playoff, then you're going to get more than anyone else who's not. That's how it works. When we come back, a couple of other nuggets to get to when it comes to sports. And in fact, Rez, by the way, great job.
I got to mention that as far as USC goes, USC did not, like Oregon and Washington, accepted the partial shares.
Yes.
So USC is not on a partial share.
No, they're not. Neither was UCLA. They were the initial, like, oh, no, this is a great deal for us as much as it is. But think about if you're those teams in the Big 12, the Pac-12, even Oregon and Washington with partial shares getting nearly $50 million.
Well,
that's a win.
You get more than most everybody still at a half share, and knowing that in a few years you're going to get the full share. And by the time that full share rolls around, I mean, that's going to be double, triple, quadruple what you were already beating out schools with just your partial shares. So yeah, it's worth the wait for Oregon and Washington, but there's the difference is that the LA schools arranged to where, yeah, they got the full shares, and Oregon, Washington accepted the partial shares to make it all work in the end. So yeah, that's why there's a difference there between that group of schools that came over from the Pac.
We'll come back with a few more stories, including what does all this really mean, the Big Ten, the distribution, and all that. We'll have that too, but we have a couple of other good nuggets in sports. And over the weekend, just randomly met viewers who watch 365 Sports and this podcast. And we'll tell you a little bit about that and more. It was great to see them. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco. May means a lot. Mother's Day around the corner, but also graduation. And the Baylor Club is celebrating the graduates for the class of 2026. At the end of the semester in style, a graduation celebration lunch and dinner that they will host May 15th and 16th inside McLean Stadium's ballroom. Reservations are filling up fast, so go to the Baylor Club website and or their Facebook page for more information. And on top of that, they have taco about a party. That's an event that they're having. They have Mother's Day reservations are filling up fast. I mentioned Mother's Day later this month. Take care of that. But if you just want a great membership to use for food, brunch, lunch, dinner, etc., and even golf course access in places too, you get that. That's where we host our banquet to honor 20 academic all-stars, senior student athletes next Wednesday inside the Baylor Club, and they do a phenomenal job of setting everything up in class, plus the food is extraordinary. It's the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco. Memberships available, and tell them that Smokey, Craig, and 365 Sports sent you.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Join the celebration. It's 27 years for Richard Car Motors, and we're celebrating with big anniversary savings. The GMC Sierra delivers strength, power, and a refined interior loaded with premium comfort and technology. During Richard Car's 27th anniversary sale, find savings like $9,000 off all Sierra 1500 Pro and SLE models in stock. Thank you, Central Texas, for 27 years. Log on, call, or come by today to find big anniversary savings now.
Richard Car, they have the truck for you.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
Appreciate your time as we're into this 4 o'clock hour. Ryan Mulvaney will join us, college athletes attorney. He'll join us at around 4:40, 4:45 today. And then Scott Dockerman from The Athletic on the Big 12 distribution today at 5.
The Big 10 distribution.
What did I say?
Big 12
I was
distribution.
wishing I was like kind of in a dreamland. You ruined it for me. But no, you're right. The Big 10, mass amount of distribution. All right, so Connor O'Gara is going to join us at some point this week, I think on Wednesday, college football writer. Here is a video of him looking at Matt Rule's contract at Nebraska based on results. We understand that Matt, believe me, Craig and I as Nebraska fans, we know that against teams in the top 25 all time, not good at all. In fact, really bad. Nebraska, in fact, the longest streak, I think, in college football without a win against a top 25 team. Here is Connor O'Gara breaking down, and you wonder about colleges losing money and making bad decisions. Here is Connor O'Gara.
Notepad, Will. Read it and weep right there. I'm going to read the terms for those who are not watching this. For audio only crowd, I got you. Don't worry. We're going to get there. This is bad. If you want to fire Matt Rule at the end of 2026, $63.36 million. You want to fire him at the end of 2027, I got you. $54 million, just a little bit more than that. 2028, you're like, you know what? It's just not working out. You still can't beat a top 25 team. No big deal. It's $44 million. All right, that's fine. Whatever. We're going to be with our coach for the end of the decade, maybe. You want to fire him at the end of 2029. You want to start new in the 2030s. Okay, good luck. You're going to be paying $33.2 million. How about 2030? You know, that's kind of winding down a little bit. $21.96 million. That is still Gus Malzahn Auburn buyout money that we are talking here. This contract is ridiculous.
So what he's saying is so much Matt Rule, but that's Matt's contract. The Jimbo Fisher, among others, is he has been very fortunate with timing. So he's at Nebraska. They're trying desperately to try to get themselves above water. They've had at least bowl appearances, but again, successful, like big-time wins, it has been forever. But they're better than they were before he got there. And they're trying to stabilize it to where maybe they can get past just being bowl eligible. But they then give him another contract, just like, well, because what? James Franklin, Craig, was fired at Penn State. And so, well, there's the Matt Rule connection because he played there. He was a walk-on there. And so what does Nebraska do? Just like a lot of other schools do, they extend a coach who may never have been really contacted seriously. They might have given him a chance because Matt knew the AD or knows the AD. He went there. But it's just crazy the kind of money, the buyout money that Rule will have to pay too, but that Nebraska, if they got rid of him, if he went 4-8 this year, what they would have to pay him too.
Yeah, I think it's totally stupid on their part. They negotiated against themselves, and I think had Penn State come to the table and this rumored relationship that he has with their athletic director going way back would have played into him being the leading candidate, then guess what, Nebraska? You probably need to hire a new football coach, but would that have been the worst thing in the world? Would that have just derailed some kind of crazy momentum that you were building in Lincoln? No. I mean, I like Matt Rule as a person. I liked him when we covered him on a regular basis. He has a lot of fun as a head coach, and I think especially in the position he was in at the time that we were around him, while it was a very difficult time and Baylor embroiled in scandal and all that, he did something that I don't think a lot of coaches could have done. He came into a really awful situation and helped them climb out of it to some degree, not only publicly, but like privately in the locker room. He helped a lot of young men who were struggling that had nothing to do with anything, but were being punished all the same. He helped them get out of a pretty dark place where if you said you were a Baylor football player, it was like you might as well said you're the Antichrist at that point in time. So he helped the program and to an extent the wider fan base just be able to accept themselves again, I think, in so many ways, and not be like afraid to say that they're fans of a school because of the backlash they would receive. And so I think there's a good segment of people that saw that and were around for that will always be grateful. But he did say some things and then do differently. And he did kind of tell half-truths to cover his ass to then go and do what he ultimately wanted to do. And he did pretty much ruin the buildup to the Sugar Bowl against Georgia, which was probably going to be a loss regardless. When you look back on that version of Georgia, they were about to pop off and go on their run. It was literally like right before they were about to start winning national titles. It was that final team. So they might have lost that game anyways, but that whole trip to the Sugar Bowl was a very forgettable, kind of miserable experience from a coverage standpoint, because every day was just filled with Matt Rule's talking to the Jets. Matt Rule's looking at the NFL. Matt Rule's doing this. And it's like the culmination of 3 years of trying to claw your way back from just the worst of the worst kind of headlines. And here you are in this big moment, and all the talks about this guy who helped you get here is now leaving for another team. And they just sucked. It sucked. It was a terrible way to end. I didn't hold it against him because, hey, money talks and opportunity. It's your life. You got to do what you got to do. So he went and took an NFL gig. It just wasn't the Jets, and it did not work out. He'll probably never get an NFL head coaching opportunity again based on how it went the last time. But then, yeah, he finds his way back into college where I think he belongs, and Nebraska gives us a great opportunity, and he's been okay. It's been a slow build, though. I mean, when you think about 3 years in, it's like when you start to feel like you're really hitting a stride, and I don't know that Nebraska necessarily feels that way just yet. I think it still feels almost like you're not quite in a rhythm, and you're trying to find that rhythm to begin with. And so I can totally relate to the people who love him, wanting to be around forever. But I think when you start talking about the money portion and just how much they're negotiating against themselves for somebody who's not really proven enough to the point to be worth that kind of dough. I just think it's a stupid decision by the people in power in Lincoln to make their lives more difficult moving forward, because, okay, he goes to Penn State. What's the worst that happens? You go hire a coach and you go 7-5, or you go 6-6 or whatever, you make a bowl game. Not much changes. I don't think the program would fall off a cliff if you made the wrong hire. I think the program's pretty much what it is at this point. And you hoped that Matt Rule would be the guy to break through the ceiling and get back to where Osborne had you, and even Solich to an extent there for a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that Matt Rule was so make or break that they needed to go, oh God, we got to make sure Penn State doesn't get him. And then I think they're going to have to live with that when they inevitably have to pay this buyout one way or the other, because I don't think he lives to see the end of that contract unless Nebraska just stops caring about football, or unless they turn a corner and they turn into some 10-win every year type of team in the Big Ten, which is, given the current landscape of the Big Ten, kind of hard to see how that occurs right now for them. So like the guy, definitely think he's better in the college game, but I have no idea what Nebraska was doing trying to just raise the buyout figures. I just think that was just very short-sighted.
It's about the supply and demand, or sometimes what you think. Penn State's going to get whoever they want. They eventually got Matt Campbell, although maybe one or two people did not say they were interested.
I was going to say push back a little bit, because they didn't get whoever they wanted right away. They had to go down the line a little bit.
If they wanted Matt Rule, they would have gotten him.
Well, yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he graduated there.
They would have gotten him. And so I don't understand. You see NFL teams do this with sometimes free agents. They bid against themselves. You use that term off the top. They did. Nebraska bid against themselves with Matt Rule. Where else was he going to go? Man, he's been good. I really like him, as you said. But right now, 7-6. It's better than what was going on, but it's still not why they have those gazillion-dollar type of monumental type athletic facilities to do that.
Yeah, Penn State, they could have gotten the guy that went to school there probably, but they struck out on Kalani Sitake. We know that. I mean, they struck out on a couple of guys, so who knows what they would have been searching for until they got to Matt Campbell, if Matt Campbell had said no. But yeah, I mean, I think Matt Rule made a lot of sense there, just as a former player, having a good relationship with the AD. Wish him well in Lincoln. I've been waiting a long time now to see Nebraska football get back on track, but I do think that they kind of outsmarted themselves in trying to make sure that he went nowhere, because I don't think him going somewhere else like Penn State really changes all that much in the big picture to begin with. I mean, you restart, but restart from what, 7-6? We're not talking about replacing Osborne here, with all due respect. So I don't think it would have been the worst thing in the world if you just had another reset button pushed and you had a lot more money at your disposal potentially, and not all tied up in maybe having to pay this guy off in a couple of years when you're still 7-6.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just the thought of a 10-win season, I don't know if I'll be around when that does happen. Here's a lineage of Maurice Jones-Drew from famous De La Salle High School in California. His father, of course, was a phenomenal player into the NFL. He has committed to play at UCLA. Class of 2027 running back. He's kind of built like his dad, 5'8", 175, great balance and more. And he is a UCLA commit.
Who is?
Maurice Jones-Drew III.
Okay, I was going to say you didn't say his name. You said the lineage of Maurice Jones-Drew, but Deuce Jones-Drew, I believe his name is. Deuce is what I saw his name listed as, and is a commitment, and it says right there, Deuce Jones-Drew.
Well, that's only because they spelled Deuce wrong. Is Deuce D-U-E?
No, that's spelled the way they spell it. His name is Deuce Jones-Drew. He's the son of Maurice Jones-Drew.
No, it's Maurice Jones-Drew III. His nickname is Deuce.
He goes by Deuce Jones-Drew. Look at any headline mentioning him. I'm not going to argue over it, but Deuce Jones-Drew, son of Maurice Jones-Drew, is what you're trying to get to here.
I did.
And yeah, it's a nice commitment for UCLA to continue the lineage, as you mentioned that word, from father to son, as far as suiting up in the gold and powder blue there. So yeah, we're getting old, folks. When Maurice Jones-Drew's kid is coming up through the pipeline, and Peyton Manning's kid's not far behind. And we've seen a lot of guys over the last few years that are the sons of former NFL players or NBA stars, for that matter, like Raja Bell's kid, Dia, at Texas from the NBA, and several others that are out there at this point. But yeah, Deuce Jones-Drew going to UCLA. So we are getting old, and it's kind of cool to see at the same time. But the first thing I think of is, yeah, we're getting old, because I'm in the same kind of age group as Maurice Jones-Drew. So good to have that Bruin connection for the UCLA staff. I'm sure that didn't hurt at all. And I'm very interested to see what they look like under new management out there in Westwood. I mean, they got that Big Ten money, but haven't been able to do a whole lot with it just yet. And we'll see with a turnover in staff if they can get that thing going. But yeah, Deuce Jones-Drew looks like a pretty good player.
I don't know too much. I know Bob Chesney's the head coach there now, and he seems to be all I've read is good stuff about what he's doing. And again, we don't know how it's going to transfer onto the field. Replaced, Foster, who had a couple of nice wins. The one that got James Franklin pretty much fired was the win against Penn State last season early on.
Yeah, that was the big Neuheisel game, and him basically being thrown on people's shoulders after the game and calling a good one. And I think that was the death knell for James Franklin, was losing to that UCLA team. But Chesney was a good, solid hire, bringing him up from the G5 where he had a lot of success. And, I mean, that's an interesting team, just because I don't really know what to expect. They're in a very crowded and difficult league now, as has been proven with the national titles here recently. So I don't think that there's like some really high bar to have to meet right away. They can kind of build this thing, and interested to see how they do that. But they'll be doing it with Deuce Jones-Drew, not the biggest guy in the world. Don't know much about him as a recruit, other than he's like a top 100 kid in California. He went to De La Salle, which is the factory out there. But I noticed too, they do misspell Deuce, but I'm sure that was intentional on the part of the parents in the nickname department. I'm sure that was all like stylistically a choice and not at all some spelling blunder, because that was the first thing I noticed was like Deuce isn't spelled right, but that's okay.
Hey, by the way, here's a note. This is not a part of anything you have, Rez. Matt Hayes reporting that the Brendan Sorsby case will be filed and heard in Lubbock, Texas.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's where he is, so I don't think that's
just a thought.
Huge surprise.
Yeah, the Chambliss case was in his home state, or the state where he was playing football, among some others, right?
It was there in Oxford. It was in, Miss is right there in Ole Miss. Owen Heineke was in Norman, Oklahoma. Yeah. So, like Chandler Morris, just mentioning his name for the one guy out there. His was in.
Yeah, you're going to get.
Yeah. His was in, what town is that in Virginia?
Fairfax, Springfield?
No.
Virginia Beach?
Wherever University of Virginia is, I believe that's where he was. And I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now. But, I believe that's where his was. Charlottesville is where Virginia is. So, I believe Chandler's was in Charlottesville. So that's nothing new. I mean, you are there. That's where you're located. There is a bit of that home court cooking, but we've seen that go the way of a Heineke and a Chambliss, and also go against some other guys as well. I think whether it's in Lubbock or it's New York City, I mean, the subject matter is the subject matter, and you shouldn't have some Red Raider judge going, yeah, I know it's like the greatest sin outside of like real crime that you can commit, but I really need him in red and black or scarlet and black next year, so we're gonna make it work. This is, like I said, the battle of the NCAA cannot afford to lose above all others, and so we'll see. But yeah, I'm glad to hear there's just the steps being taken to get to the point where we're going to have a decision made sooner rather than later, because that's going to be a monumental decision one way or the other.
All right, one more note. College football, spring football is done. Here is a list are the teams who had their weekend. UCF, UCLA, and Washington, three of the obviously bigger schools. You have San Diego State down there as well, but all the others in between, including New Hampshire. At the end, all of them had their spring football weekend. It seemed like that came and went pretty quickly. Back in the day, BYU was one of the first among others, but it is now whatever games, scrimmages, fan fest or whatever, nothing, they are all done.
No, they're not all done. There's still like 2 or 3 teams, but they're not big teams that are coming up this weekend. This was the last weekend that had more than a handful of teams, though, and had some of the notable, I guess, names remaining, like a Washington, like a UCLA, UCF, San Diego State. But yeah, there's still one more weekend to go, and that will be like I said, this is the remnants. St. Thomas is Friday, and then Saturday's Dartmouth and Portland State. So yes, technically it's pretty much wrapped up as far as most people would care, but it's not like officially wrapped up. So I want to just mention the St. Thomas and Dartmouth and
Good
Portland
for them.
State.
Yep.
You still got your games or your fan events or whatever to do. That'll be this weekend, and then that will be the official end of all spring activity.
Do you know one of the famous things about Portland State football?
No.
Mouse Davis was a coach there back in the 70s. He's the one that, like, along with, oh my goodness, who's the guy that was the other inventor that was part of the teaching of Mike Leach? He was
the air raid?
Yeah, not the guy who did all that.
Al Mummy.
Al Mummy. Also, Mouse Davis was at Portland State. They put up massive numbers over the years, and that's what I remember. They were a really good football program and played in a national championship against North Dakota State many, many years ago.
Well, you kind of remembered it.
No, I did remember it. You didn't even know they had a football team, but.
I'm the one.
I'm saying what Portland State is known for was that they were one of the first that really did go after what was the Hal Mummy, Mouse Davis type offense, eventually Mike Leach, etc., and kind of were the ones that put up those huge numbers. I think they scored like 90 points or so in a game.
Well, I'm the one mentioning their spring game. I don't know how many other college football podcasts you'll get that on. Them and St. Thomas, for that matter.
No, I agree.
No,
yeah, that was impressive.
There's still those games.
Neil Lomax, remember him?
Like a Steelers quarterback or something, I think.
Cardinals, I think.
Well, yeah, some NFL quarterback from my trading cards back in the early 1990s.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. I just wanted
okay,
a little nugget for Portland State.
So, yeah, spring games are wrapped up. I don't know how many people, like, it's just been weird to see kind of the coverage of those. I read some articles here and there, get a few tidbits here and there, but you can just feel like sort of the malaise when people bring up spring ball now. And I don't know that we need that to be what it was in the 2000s or the 2010s. I get the sense that most people like just want to take a break for a little while, but I'm curious because if there's a way to spice things up, you're going to try to find a way to do that. And maybe that's what these OTAs are ultimately, or getting summer practices more official, and that's more of your spring ball. But there's no denying, however you feel about it, whether it's indifference or, man, I miss how that used to kind of be fun. There's no denying that there is kind of a malaise when you bring up spring ball and the coverage of it. It's just not at all what it used to be. But it was a lot quieter this year from the standpoint there wasn't that spring transfer portal window. And I do think that was a positive, that as fun as it would be to be sitting here today and going, oh, hell, breaking loose, and here's quarterbacks are entering the portal left and right. I do think it's better for the sport that that's not the case, at least this time of year. So everybody could go and have their spring ball, like Rhett Lashley, who we talked to the other day, and know who their team is and who their team's going to be, barring some unforeseen events, and just plan for the next year. I do think that was a nice change of pace this season, even though it's definitely not as interesting overall without that portal being a part of things.
Neil Lomax, thank you, Kim. The older folks in the crowd, they beat Delaware State 105-0.
Wow.
Back in 1980, Neil Lomax was the quarterback, threw for 7 touchdowns in the first quarter. I knew it was 100. For some reason, I thought it was like 90-0. But a phenomenal year career at Portland State with Mouse Davis. So I'm glad you brought up Portland State in today's show. This makes us older folks feel like we still have a connection to the college football history. All right, I got a couple of pictures. What you laughing at me?
No, I'm just wondering what trail we're walking down here.
So Friday, I was up in Dallas on Friday and Saturday to see Jennifer Daniel and the most amazing person in the history of ever with Gracie Lynn. And we're at a place called Seeger & Sons, and they're having their dinner, and I hadn't eaten. I drove up there straight after the show, and I walk up to the front where there's this pretty long, beautiful bar, and I lean over and I say, "Can I have a menu, please?" And there's this guy to my right and a couple of people to my left. It's packed. And this guy right here, let me see which picture you have. That's it. Dean Bingy. He was there with his wife having drinks and dinner and suggested what I get. And I said a couple of words. He said, and he recognized me and mainly my voice because I'm losing it as I get older. Great to see you. He's a Baylor graduate. I think Dean was a graduate back in quite some time ago. And so wanted to bring him up. Thank you very much for your being nice. And you do listen to what we do and watch what we do. So there's a viewer of us with us. And it just randomly just happened. I could have gone 5 feet left and never met him. So thank you very much for your time and also for watching what we do on 365 Sports. And then on top of that, the next day we're at lunch and we decide to go get a Bloody Mary at a place called the Brass Tap. And guess who was there? Dylan Dominguez, another viewer of 365 Sports, a graduate at Baylor in 2004. He's the big tall one. And appreciate both of you for being very hospitable and also for what you do to give us time whenever you do watching the show today. That was random on Friday night in the middle of Frisco, and then on Saturday in Richardson, Texas. And by the way, Dean Bringy is a class of 92 graduate at Baylor. So
very cool. Yeah, cool that you got to see those guys, and shout out to them, and appreciate you watching and listening, or however you go about partaking in the show. We certainly appreciate the support, and cool to run in those guys, and they were nice folks. So glad you had those encounters this weekend.
And then one final note, and then we go to Ryan Mulvaney. Spirit Airlines, do we have it? Oh, my goodness. This brings shivers up and down our spine. They're gone. They're done. They're out of business. We flew them a handful of times just because we were trying to find the cheapest airfares for us to go to Cowboys camp or whatever. Craig SMOAK has a Spirit Airlines story about a trip to California at Cowboys training camp. Do you remember it?
I mean, vaguely now that you bring it up, I don't know that I would say shivers down my spine is how I would describe it. More like I just saw this headline. I'm like, all right, yeah, makes sense. Good riddance. Yeah, I mean, they lost my luggage one time. Nothing that was super crazy or that people haven't experienced with every airline. It's just I think your percentage chances of having it happen with Spirit were much higher. We know the deal with them. Give you the least. But in return, you get the cheapest ticket that you can find to try to get where you're going. So, yeah, a lot of people took them up on that and dealt with crowded cabins, which I guess are unavoidable unless you're in first class these days. But, yeah, losing luggage, just a whole not given F factor that came with that airlines that you kind of knew when you signed up for it, because that was the price of doing business was they don't give an F. You're getting a cheap ticket. So let's just make sure we go where we're going. And that was the arrangement. And yeah, I'm not surprised. I was wondering if they were going to get bailed out there for a second, but yeah, I don't have any shivers down my spine. I just have, I guess, the feeling that this was inevitable based on their business model and based on the horror stories over the years and based on the reputation of when you said Spirit Airlines, people are like, oh yeah, that's I fly that when I'm trying to go cheap. Like, yeah, no surprise we are where we are, quite honestly. I'm sad for the people that are losing their jobs.
Yep.
Certainly way too much of that going on, but outside of just the human being side of it, I don't want anybody losing their job. As an airline goes, we're not missing anything. I mean, we're missing some cheaper tickets, but we're not missing much in the grand scheme of like treatment or first class travel or anything along those lines. So, yeah, hopefully it's an improvement overall for people out there. But yeah, don't like people losing their jobs.
So Spirit Airlines, we were at Cowboys training camp. We landed, we got our luggage, but Craig never got it. And we were there for about 7 days or so, and we kept asking them, and they were going to get in touch with us to bring the luggage to where we were, which is about 50 minutes north of LA and Oxnard. Never really could get any kind of decision or any call or any communication. We then go back to check in to leave LAX for Dallas, and there was a note next to Craig's name. We have your bags here at the terminal. They never left. They were there, but they said it weren't. And then they were always there, and a week later you picked them up. Remember we went to Walmart and started having to buy undimensionables and all that kind of stuff just to get you through the week?
Just clothes, dude. I mean, I didn't have a suitcase, so I just needed clothes, period. But yeah, I remember having to do that. And yeah, they were not very good at what they did. And so I'm not surprised they're going out of business.
Yep, they are. They're done. So I saw a cool story. Southwest flew the first captain of Spirit Airlines because there was no more flights, and they honored him with a water gun type of on the runway. That was pretty damn cool. Good for them. All right, when we come back, Ryan Mulvaney, college athletes attorney, on many things that we see from the 5-on-5, the Brendan Sorsby, to much more when it comes to college athletics. And can any of this ever get ironed out? His thoughts and solutions, if any, that might work too. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco, with a good-looking lot of great cars. First of all, you want SUVs? They have the Jeep Ram, Jeep Cherokee, Jeep Grand Cherokee, Jeep Wagoneer. I drove the Cherokee. This fantastic car. It really was an SUV that you would expect, but was even more so. Remember, I drove a Jeep one time, like a 5, 6, 8 weeks ago, when I had to get my car with some normal maintenance. And I was like, man, a Jeep, that gets kind of loud and rattly, and it was smooth as it could be. Drove that. And on top of that, of course, the very constant, annually awarded and honored Ram trucks, the 1500s up to whatever else you want, that can haul anything and be really comfortable while you do it. And then the pre-owned, or the inventory they have, which is what I bought 6 years ago, maybe in July of 2020, bought a brand new, well, not brand new, but I bought a pre-owned car on the lot. Really has been fantastic for me at Alan Samuels. Ted Teague, CEO and general manager. David Gray runs the sales department, and many others that make that place go, including you, the customer. Alan Samuels, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Ryan Mulvaney, lawyer, sports, NCAA revenue sharing, NIL attorney for college athletes, Stevens and Lee, NBA agent, and a contract advisor for NCAA coaches. We've had Ryan on this show before, and he joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and David Smoke. Great to have you on, Ryan. It's been too long. And I wanted to ask you this question. When you started getting into representing college athletes, because you've done a lot more over your career too, did you ever think it would get to such, I don't know if tipping point, but what we've seen really the last 5 years when it comes to sports law?
Well, David and Craig, thank you very much for having me back. I appreciate it. And that's a great question. I guess the short answer is no. I never thought we'd wind up here so quickly. The longer answer is I believe at some point along the way, with all of the billions and billions of dollars from media rights and other things, that yes, we would at some point get to revenue being shared with athletes. The question was when, and even now the question is how. And we're going through the many versions of the hows as we can see.
So, Ryan, a lot of different routes we can go and go eligibility. We can go Sorsby. We can go Redbird Capital. I guess the biggest story the last few days has been the Brennan Sorsby story. The others have kind of been lingering there. So let's start off with that one. Your thoughts on Sorsby going and hiring Jeffrey Kessler, and what do you think that they have that they can try to do to sit here and win a battle that looks like, based on precedence, going to end up with him being suspended for gambling on his own team, probably for the rest of his career? How do they go about attacking that, Ryan, in your mind? And just kind of where's this story in the big picture of college sports and sports law colliding here?
Yeah, this is a really interesting case to be. Look, you've got the underpinnings of the gambling investigation and how that's going to be treated. I mean, look, that's a big no-no. We as professional athletes, they can't bet on their own teams. They can hardly participate in gambling as it is. And here, this was, talk about an inflection point, Smokey, that you mentioned earlier. This was foreseeable. This situation should have been resolved years ago with the advent of NIL and revenue sharing. And look, we all want to participate. I'm not much of a gambler or bettor. You're not going to see me in Vegas at the casinos, but this is a big problem for a variety of reasons. One, athletic performance, and two, we're talking about a lot of money, particularly now at stake in college athletics and revenue sharing and revenue shared with athletes. What's going to happen with him? Only time will tell. And look, Jeff is a prominent litigator. Obviously, he's well known and well regarded. I'm interested to see how this progresses for sure. I don't have a crystal ball on what would happen, but look, I guess if he's deemed ineligible, he could apply for some sort of supplemental draft process with the NFL. Who knows? I do think he has his avenues, even if he's not rendered eligible. But look, time will tell.
So Ryan, just on this one before we move to the other stuff, there's with the eligibility, I know you pointed out the issues with the eligibility rules they're trying to pass, or you pointed out issues with other things. Is this one as clear cut though as it gets? Like the NCAA can say, this is our rule, there's no pushing back on this, or is there a route for them to just try and drag this through court like so many other things over the years?
Yeah, look, you can drag anything through court. That's sometimes the unfortunate things about litigation. Look, I have non-athlete clients who complain about litigation every day. One, courts are understaffed with judges across the country, and the process itself is very long at times. Unless there's some sort of an emergent application for injunctive relief that could be made, something like this could drag along. I think at the end of the day, Jeff will have his strategies. I certainly don't need to tell him how to litigate a case. But this is a problem, I think, right? The NCAA has rules, has its regulations on gambling, and this is going to be an interesting one to watch because it's the intersection of the gambling issues and a claim of eligibility.
Ryan, there are so many lawsuits, and there are so many that heck, we don't even know are about to happen. You're successful for what you've done. How do you pick and choose with all of so many that the NCAA seems to lose?
Well, look, I mean, to the NCAA's credit, they've won some and they've lost some, and mostly on the eligibility issues. I mean, obviously the House case settled, but I foresaw that going very badly for the NCAA. The antitrust litigation is not the NCAA's friend. Obviously, they want an antitrust exemption from Congress. Who knows if that will ever happen? But picking and choosing, you have to really take a deep dive into the facts and the factual background of each client. Particularly in the litigation aspect of things. You don't want to file frivolous litigation, certainly, and you want to make sure you have a good faith basis to assert the claims you are asserting on behalf of the athlete. And then, of course, do you go to state court where athletes have had some luck? Do you go to federal court where the NCAA and athletes have had some luck? So it's a very strategic analysis and process before launching the litigation bomb, so to speak. I had an opportunity to be consulted on a matter that the out-of-state. So I practice in New Jersey, as you know, and in New York. So I had an opportunity to consult with an out-of-state lawyer who was seeking to commence an eligibility action here in New Jersey on behalf of an athlete who was on campus on the West Coast, a California university, a very prominent one. And he did not receive at that time an eligibility waiver. And because New Jersey had recently found in favor of an athlete against Rutgers University, a football player, the out-of-state lawyer wanted to piggyback that case here. And I counseled, no way. because we're going to, first and foremost, experience a procedural loss because there's no jurisdiction here over the NCAA for a California university and a California college athlete. And the last thing I wanted to do, particularly in this very high-profile area of eligibility cases, was be front page on the Law Journal and media for taking a procedural loss right at the outset. I figured the best place to file the case was in California, and that's eventually what had happened. So you have to be very careful, not just from a fact-based issue and analysis, but also from a procedural analysis. Where is the best place to file the case? Is it state court? Is it federal court? If so, where?
Ryan, on the 5 for 5, the NCAA is looking to push through for eligibility. I know you commented a bit about this. I think everybody from a sanity point would love it, except for the class that's going to get screwed over, right? And not get their extra year, but there's got to be a cutoff somewhere. There's got to be a start date. What do you see as the positives, negatives of this? What's the likelihood the NCAA is able to push something like this forward?
Yeah, I look, you're probably not going to hear this from a lot of lawyers who work for athletes, but look, I get it from a fan perspective. I also get it from an NCAA perspective. You don't want 26 and 27-year-olds, playing college athletics against 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Perfectly understandable. How we get there is another question. And this new rule, 5 and 5, look, it used to be 4 and 5, and now it's 5 and 5. A laudable effort, a little convoluted, and not only that, but I think it harms the athletes who have just completed their eligibility, right? Their 4th year of eligibility. I think it harms them. I've received a number of inquiries about this very issue. What claims would some of those athletes have? And all throughout the House settlement process, we, the judge, the court, Judge Wilkin, did everything in her power to do what? Protect a certain segment of athlete who would have otherwise lost roster spots, right? This is, I think, in my opinion, no different than a roster spot issue. You have athletes who were in school who would have lost a roster spot. You have an argument here where the athletes who've just completed their 4th year of eligibility have played against folks who are on their 5th years and who have earned those 5th years, and now are, kids coming up behind those athletes who are receiving those 5th years. So I think at the end of the day, whether this gets pushed through or not, which all media reports show it will, I think those seniors who have just completed their eligibility might have claims to pursue.
Yeah, and it's I like the idea. I really do. I even remember someone bringing this up a long time ago, but it was, you had 5 years to play 4. And then it's like the COVID year, Ryan, is
yes.
They gave athletes whose seasons had been over, and some of them didn't get a chance to play in the postseason, especially like basketball. And it just seemed like they handed them out like candy as far as the extra year. How did you try to avoid that but do what's right for everybody? Can you?
Yeah. I mean, it's we'll see. And that's an interesting point, David. I remember that I remember that those waivers, and I was at both the A10 tournament. I was going back and forth between the A10 and the Big East tournaments, Big East being in Madison Square Garden and the A10 at the time at the Barclays Center. And I remember a conversation with the then one of the athletic directors, associate athletic director at George Mason during the A10 tournament about, here we are in the throes of COVID, and, that Friday or Saturday night, I believe it was, and everything was canceled. And look, there are a lot of student athletes who were affected by that, and the NCAA looked at that situation and provided an extra season. It found a heart, as one would say. But I do think, David, it's got to do something here for the kids who are finishing up air quotes, finishing up, because they have competed against those with 5 years or more. And now kids are coming behind them who are now reaping the benefits of what may be and very likely will be, a new rule. And I understand the NCAA's position on this, right? Your eligibility is over. It ended, right? So you're now excluded from this. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it will invite more litigation. And for what? To what end? At the end of the day, there's enough litigation with the NCAA. This is one that could be easily avoided by granting those who just completed their eligibility one extra season.
My last question, Ryan, and thank you, man. It's always great to have your knowledge on with us. The Big 12 and Redbird Capital, Weatherford Capital. Wow. Utah, of course, has a relationship, an agreement that they have with somebody that's infusing money into their program too. But what was your reaction from somebody that understands all of this? What was your reaction? Was this like, oh my, this is a pretty good deal? Or, well, wait a minute, what are they doing?
Yeah, a little of both. Look, I represent a lot of athletes who have transferred into or were otherwise recruited by Big 12 universities. And from a negotiation standpoint, it looks great, right? Redbird is providing 12 or 13 million to the conference, and then hanging these carrots out there of a line of credit to the universities. I'd be surprised if universities dip into the line of credit, but that remains to be seen. Certainly from somebody who represents athletes, this could be a good thing. Hopefully that money will trickle down. Who knows? But look, at the end of the day, for everyone that clamors about, these are amateur athletics and amateur athletes, and this is about school and your scholarships and education. Again, this is just yet another example of now we have private equity entering the stage and providing, upwards of, 30 million each line of credit to universities with a 12 or $13 million capital infusion to the conference, on top of the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars generated through multimedia rights, all generated by athletes. So do I think it's a good thing? I don't know. I think time will tell, but certainly this is not about simply going to history class and going to math class for the athletes and their scholarships. All of this money is being thrown into college athletics, and for one reason, because of the athletes who are on the field, who are on the court, who are on the pitch, who are on the diamond, who are on the mat, or who are on the ice. More often than not on the field and on the court, because those are the revenue producing and revenue generating sports. But all of this money, whether it's multimedia, whether it's sponsorships, whether it's Redbird or other private equity, this money is generated by the college athletes.
Yes, it is. Ryan, great stuff. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Always good to pick your brain and get some answers that we ourselves are asking about a lot of these stories. Have a great rest of your week and appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Ryan P. Mulvaney with us from the law firm of Stevens and Lee, representing college athletes, attorney, NIL, etc., on many things. We got a chance from Sorsby to much more.
Yeah, I mean, obviously can't shed a lot of light on things that haven't happened yet, but I think my point from the end of last week is where it was last week on the whole, well, you do a disservice to the class. Okay, so if you don't do it this year, then you do it the following year, and eventually, I guess everybody's happy then. I mean, I understand it that there's going to be potentially a crowd that's left unhappy because they don't get to go under this umbrella. And I mean, would it be the worst thing in the world to give this last class one more year, but then the class from 2 years ago says, what about us? Well, you got a COVID year. Well, so did they. And so, yeah, I don't know how messy that would get if you drew it back one more year to cover these seniors. I don't know what that would look like other than a complete madhouse for these seniors to then turn around as they're all already moving on or what? And then, oh yeah, by the way, everybody over this last year now has another year of eligibility, and they go scrambling to fill out rosters. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but it would be messy and probably entertaining for this show's purposes. So yeah, I'm all for the 5 for 5. I don't care how they kind of doctor it in now at this point. I think it's a logical move because otherwise the lawsuits are never going to end.
Well, Scott Dockerman, I agree. It just seems like there's always one more of, well, yeah, but ruling, lawsuit, whatever. Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com, wrote the story about the Big Ten distributing $1.4 billion to the 18 members. And my goodness, the numbers are impressive. He's next. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco. A great business to find out what is bothering you enough to where you sometimes can't sleep. Bothering you enough when you do get up, if you did sleep at all, you're always like in pain enough to where you can't function. So Ideal MRI can do a lot for you. Two different things. One, your doctor contacts them and they will set you up with an appointment and get an MRI on whatever is the part of your body that is hurting enough to where you are basically miserable. And then on number two, they charge $497 or less every single time at Ideal MRI. Is it your shoulder? They'll find it. Is it your back? They'll find it. What it might be, and then might even, well, no, there's really not much there. So there's something else we got to look at, or your doctor does. Dr. Rob Maxey, an amazing guy, been a part of this show since day one in April of 2020. And even before then, I talked about the business in Waco of IdealMRI.com. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
I have a lot of friends reach out to me about buying vehicles for their fleet and their business, and I always recommend Allen Samuels. You see a lot of businesses running different brands, but I really think Rams are the best looking ones out there. They're going to take care of you. They're going to make sure that you get what you need, and they're always going to take care of you on the service side and the sales side.
Like Allen Samuels always said, Waco has a lot to offer, and so do we at Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
All right, here we go. This 5 o'clock hour, man, we appreciate your time. We know you could be doing or watching or listening to somebody else, so we do appreciate it. And we try to bring you the content you want, including Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com. We've had Scott on many times talking college football, Iowa Hawkeyes football, and more. And Scott, I got to tell you that I see these like distributions, conferences, and I stopped and said, wait a minute, how much money? And everybody wins, even the two teams with partial shares. Did those numbers even go higher than what maybe you expected when you started the story? Or is that why you did the story?
Well, I got the information in advance, and in the fall, there were a lot of budget estimates that this was going to be roughly the amount that each team was going to get. But until you actually see the actual dispersal numbers, which is the Big Ten made $1.47 billion and then disbursed $1.37 billion, then you start to look at it in that totality and go, wow, those are some huge numbers. But I think probably what caught my eye the most was that this was the first time we've seen in the Big Ten an uneven dispersal among its members, in that Ohio State made $91.6 million, Penn State 88.9. Indiana had a little bit of a bump from its appearance, and then the rest were in the neighborhood of 76 at the low end to 79. So among the vested members, that is. So that to me tells me that now there is a new distribution formula within the Big Ten that rewards playoff not only appearances but going through the playoff system, and that is something that did surprise me a little bit. I wasn't expecting that.
And so, Scott, just to be clear for people who haven't read your article yet or just joining us, I mean, this is like, where's Indiana? Well, this is 2 years ago, right? So this isn't Michigan's national title yet. This isn't Indiana's national title. This is still Ohio State's national title from 2 years ago that we're looking at here.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing that's really interesting to me is this was the first year when they added the 4 schools from the West Coast, and the first year that their media rights deal was fully operational. And it was a $540 million increase that the league made and disbursed. So to put that in context, that's roughly the same that not last year, but the year before that the Big 12 made as a whole. So that increase was just about the same. So that was also kind of striking to me when I started researching the numbers.
Yeah, and another, like, I think from and being here and talking a lot of Big 12 more than most, I mean, it's kind of is what it is, right? Like it's a race you're never going to quite fully catch up. You just try to stay at pace as best you can, but still it's like $1 billion more in total than what that league is, $1 billion. And then you look at it and it's like $300 million from the SEC, Scott. Like, I mean, I don't think I was expecting that much. Is there a gap now being created there, or is this temporary, or kind of how do you view that there's even a pretty substantial spot between even number 1 and number 2 now?
Yeah, the overall revenue is different because the Big Ten, when you think about the markets, and granted, Florida, Georgia, and Texas are humongous markets for the league and for anybody. But when you're talking about stretched out from sea to shining sea, and you're adding the New York market, the Los Angeles market, Chicago, and a lot of other major cities, you can see why those numbers go up. And Ohio State's television numbers are the highest per average just about every year, and they continue to grow. So you can kind of see why that there's a little bit of a split between the Big Ten and SEC. But one thing that works in the SEC's favor a little bit is there are only 16 schools instead of 18. So if the Big Ten were to say bye to Maryland and Rutgers, it probably would be a lot better off financially. But but I expect, they're both going to be re-upping, and, the Big Ten will after the 29 football season and 30 basketball season. So I would expect these numbers to continue to soar, and the SEC to be pretty close as well. But I'm interested also in the demographics of the region. When you start to look at some of the states that have the SEC, and financially they're a little less well-to-do than even in the North. So that when we're talking NIL and all the other payments, that could also be a factor in, say places like Mississippi State, Mississippi, the Auburn or Arkansas, and some others that may have some struggles in the future when compared to the Big Ten.
It's amazing, a clump of 13 schools, because Oregon and Washington get a partial. that 13 schools are going to get 76 to 79 million apiece. And there are some that are some big names like Michigan, but they weren't a part of the playoff, et cetera. Do you feel like that the schools that have not really had too much success in football are along for the ride, or are they trying to catch those, which is really hard to do when it comes to Ohio State, Michigan, and now here comes Indiana doing what they're doing?
I think the old guard Big Ten does feel that it is trying to keep up. When you look at Indiana 2 years ago, it was a wasteland. I mean, that was the Kurt Warner story as a college football program to go from the losingest program in college football history to winning the national title in a 2-year period is just, we've never seen anything like it. The closest one is probably what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State. But that was, again, I'm dating myself on this one, 30 plus years ago. So the Manhattan Miracle is kind of in the rearview mirror. I think when you start to look at some of the others, Purdue, it's not as bad as you would think there financially. I mean, they have high 50s as far as average attendance. Minnesota isn't great, but it's not horrible either. I mean, they get north of 40, but the one thing that's kind of has enabled the Big Ten to survive as long as it has is that they've always pooled their money since 1988, because back then in the late 80s, basketball was almost as big, if not just as big, as football when it came to revenues, when it came to, at least on television. And schools like Iowa and Illinois and Indiana, those three in particular, and Iowa was the richest of them all, because they were able to have these side gigs for their secondary games. Well, the Big Ten, Michigan and Ohio State couldn't get into the markets, and they decided, well, let's pool all these rights. So they've all been pretty collegial about this. But, I think there's always lingering concern, especially about Maryland and Rutgers, because that was kind of an uneasy acquisition. I don't think many in the Big Ten wanted it. And it was purely a financial decision, as we know, and to get into the New York and Washington, D.C. markets. And then now the model has changed a lot. The cable isn't the big deal that it once was, 10, 12 years ago. So I think there's probably concern over that. But I think largely everybody kind of respects that everybody in the league is going to play to win, essentially.
Scott, this was a conference that at least dabbled and flirted with private equity and would have gone that route if a couple of schools like Southern Cal and Michigan didn't stand up and say, wait a second, what are we doing? Like Ohio State's like, green light, let's go. And Michigan and USC are like, whoa, wait a second. They don't, like, you look at these figures and you're like, what are you private equity in for? I mean, my gosh, you're making so much money, but how much of a conversation is still lingering in regards to that? And kind of where do you feel like the league is in terms of having moved past that? Or is that still always in sort of the side mirror? Like, how would you categorize it?
They pushed the pause button on that because, Michigan was so adamantly against it. And the main reason was that it didn't have a president. And it had a board of director or, regents, trustees that were really very much anti, whether it's private equity or in this case, it was more of a pension fund that wasn't private. It was through California Investments. So they tried to skirt the private equity card on it. But I think it's going to linger. And the one issue for the Big Ten is, there are a lot of schools that are financially well-to-do. Well, they all are largely, but then there are some teams at the bottom that are really struggling financially. And really it's a lot of the newcomers. The three biggest issues are Maryland, Rutgers, and UCLA. And they could really use that infusion of cash to do things, whether it's just stabilize the department or get new facilities, do things that it's kind of like a home equity loan, right? That's kind of what they're looking at. Whereas like Michigan, which was adamantly against it, USC in particular, were like, you know what, we're fine financially. We don't really need this. And this just sounds like we're getting extra money, but we're gonna have to pay it back because 10% of our media rights revenue will go to this investment fund over 15 to 20 years. And they weren't real fond of that. And there's also concern big picture because this would have added an extra 10 years on top of their grant of rights through 2046. And I would say that because the Big Ten has gotten so big and we don't know what the future holds, that these schools are a little more apprehensive about committing to it wholeheartedly for more than a decade or so at a time, as opposed to the 20 years ago when they created the Big Ten Network and they were very much in all in one and one for all. They had no problem going 20 years and then adding another 10 and beyond that.
So you've mentioned, and we're going to speculate for a second here, but you've mentioned like there's some schools that are not exactly carrying their weight, and we'll see how it works out for Maryland or Rutgers or whatever in the long term. How much of an appetite do you feel like there is still out there to conquer even more? We've seen what a flush of the West Coast can do for this league and how beneficial that's already been. But is there still more territory to conquer, do you feel like? Is it addition by subtraction? Like, what do you think Tony Petitti in the big picture looks like moving forward, knowing there's this monstrosity of a TV deal post-NFL that the Big Ten will be basically first in line for, I would think?
Yeah, and it will be, and with the network or the, hey, they're in a real strong position anyway to move forward. Not only do they have these great brands and markets, but they also have a lot of success too on the field that they can sell. Right. And men's basketball comes with that, and it's always been a very successful league. Now it actually has a title, which it hadn't had for 26 years. Contraction is probably something that I think most fan bases would approve of. If Maryland went back to the ACC and Rutgers went anywhere else, I think most fans would probably be okay with that. And it would probably be a stronger league because of it. At least, Maryland's carried its weight in a lot of different sports, just not football. But that's probably not going to happen, at least in this phase with the Big Ten. If there's some sort of super conference structure, then sure, then that may break it all up. But I think if you're looking beyond this as an expansion, you start to wonder, okay, what markets, what schools make sense for the Big Ten? And to me, if we say that nobody in the SEC would be interested in going to the Big Ten, then I think there's probably three that I would say the Big Ten would look at fairly strongly. And I would say Notre Dame is a no-brainer. I mean, that would be the marriage that the Big Ten has wanted for a while and would make sense. But beyond that, if Notre Dame continues to be its independent selves, probably North Carolina and Virginia would be the other two. And North Carolina will be, if it's a free agent, that's where the Big Ten and SEC will truly battle over that property, and probably Virginia too, even though Virginia is both schools as football entities aren't really strong right now, but the territory, the not only geography, but then the density, the population density, the growth, like-minded institutions, where the Big Ten is very adamant about its AAU membership. In fact, if Nebraska would have lost it before it entered the league instead of like 6 months afterwards, Nebraska probably would not have been a member. That's one thing that's always bugged the Big Ten schools is Nebraska not AAU. So I think those would be the three that I would look at, unless there's some sort of mix with the SEC. And I'm not going to even harbor that as a guess at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. Nebraska's still got to have a lure, but they lost that AAU thing. You're right, pretty quickly. They're spending a ton of money. I don't know if they seem to be stuck in the middle of that pack and they'd like to get out of it. Scott, last thing for me, and thank you very much. So we've seen the Big Ten win 3 consecutive national titles in football. The money has never been better.
Title in basketball.
Yeah, hell yeah. Michigan was dominant. And there's this arms race and also bragging race with the SEC back and forth. Are there some in the Big Ten right now that are like, yeah, huh? Hey, you invented football, but we're starting to learn how to play that game too a little bit. Is there a little bit of that going on?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of swagger right now in the Big Ten, and I did a reader survey a couple weeks ago, and it publishes Perfect Opportunity tomorrow that addresses that. On Tuesday will be what people think of the league and how it lines up with the SEC as it surpassed the SEC, and then on Wednesday will be about each individual team and then their thoughts on that. And yes, I think there is a feeling there's always been that feeling from the North, from the Big Ten country, that the SEC shapes its argument around what's convenient. Like if they lose a bowl game, well, it didn't matter. And if they win it, well, you know, we beat you. But now the Big Ten's kind of been able to throw itself around. You know, 3 straight years it's won national titles. The last 2 years in the 12-game playoff era, they've won 22 postseason games. I think they're 8-2 head-to-head against the SEC in the postseason the last 2 years. So they've got some swagger, and it's right on. I mean, you look at the teams that have won in the last 3 years. 6 different Big Ten programs have been in the national semifinals or 4 in the finals. And then you throw on other teams that have been very successful. You know, an Iowa has been pretty good. You know, obviously USC is going to be back there at some point. You know, Illinois won 19 games the last 2 years, and you figure Michigan State and Wisconsin have been down, but they got opportunities to get back up. So there's some belief that, you know, some of these schools have invested a lot, and they're going to get, you know, paid off for that. And I think Oregon might be the best team in the country at this stage. So I think that they feel they're really bullish on themselves right now. Now the SEC is, and I'm sure they don't like being humbled like this. Obviously, it goes to the ego. It's hard on them. So they're going to come back with a lot of fury. Which, you know what, we all benefit from that. Makes it for great football. You know?
Absolutely. Yes,
we love seeing that.
This is way better than it just being the same league for like 20 years straight. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to at least have a little bit of a competition going on, whether you have a side or not. But yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Scott, we really appreciate it, man. Great article, and look forward to seeing what you drop tomorrow, and just good reporting on putting the numbers out there. Really interesting to see just how well the Big Ten's really doing on and off the field as well. And wonder where it goes next, but we'll have you on to talk about that at some point in time, I'm sure. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate you guys.
Todd Dockerman, theathletic.com with us, covers the Big Ten, covers college football, and the Big Ten had to get better because the SEC had been bullying everybody. Now the SEC, I'm not sure if they have to get better, but they have to respond to it. It's really great competition.
I still think the SEC is at a very high level. I think to say otherwise is kind of crazy. They're just not. I mean, Kirby Smart said it himself. They're not as deep team wise as they were, like on an individual team by team roster basis. And that was some of what he was saying as far as a reason why things are different now. But I do think it's the ability for an Indiana to invest in itself differently than it could have 10 years ago. But yeah, good coaching also comes into play. I mean, Kurt Cignetti's a great coach, and that obviously made a world of difference for Indiana. But it's fun. It's fun to have a back and forth. And I mean, the SEC and that run from the early 2000s up till, 3 years ago, really, was really special stuff. I don't know if we'll ever see just kind of I guess one single conference sort of owning things that way ever again, because
I think it's kind of cyclical.
But it's not going to be the same though, because there's not like the layout the same way that it was. That was more during a time when college football was still pretty recognizable to where it is now. Like the Pac-12 was still the Pac-12, right? Like they still had Oregon and USC and all these teams at their disposal, and the SEC was running through that. And then this NIL post-COVID period hit, and everything's kind of changed. And I don't know if that's forever and this is the new normal, or if this is just a pocket where, yes, things just you lap around the sun and things change automatically or not. But it is interesting to have some type of a competition and it not be just, all right, is it Georgia? Is it Alabama? Is it Texas? Or is it Auburn or whatever?
It's not just a blip. It's 3 consecutive years. And now the money, of course, which they've had a ton of that, even when the SEC was winning national titles. We got to get to the wheel, quizzes, and the poll results. And by the way, Andrew Valade, come in here if I absolutely start to feel as if I'm forgetting the second poll result, because I've done that for some reason. Let's spin the wheel.
For those just joining us, the big wind down to the show as we and here's the first random one. Have you ever been to a casino? Where was it? Also, did you ever win anything?
I've been to a bunch. I used to go across the line to Shreveport, to Bossier City. many times just to kind of go over there and enjoy. I have not been in the one in Oklahoma as you cross the Texas border. I don't know why. It's beautiful. Darren Woodson keeps inviting us. I have been to Vegas.
What do you just drop in? Darren Woodson keeps inviting us. Where does that come from?
Well, you're not at Super Bowls because you don't go those.
Yeah, I know he's a big spokesman.
He's on with us on Radio Row. He represents, what's the name of it?
It's like
damn it.
I hear it like every week. I hear the
Choctaw.
commercials. Choctaw
Casino, and a lot of Cowboys do. And he invites us to come up there all of the time. And for some reason, it's usually I'm on my way to Oklahoma City for an event, whatever. But yeah, I've been to a bunch of them.
Yeah, there's WinStar up there as well, north of the border. But yeah, I mean, I've been to casino before, Shreveport for like a birthday.
New Orleans one time, 2, 3?
Went to New Orleans and bet a little bit there. So yeah, been there. It's not like a big passion of mine though. I don't seek it out, and it's not like I plan a trip around being able to go to Vegas and gamble and do all that. So different strokes, different folks, just not a part of anything I've really been involved in. But yeah, I've been to a couple casinos along the way. So did I ever win anything? I won like a few $100 one time, maybe $300-400, and that was about it. Nothing crazy. But for my limited sample size, that was pretty good.
Yep. All right. Now let's get to the quizzes. Yeah, New Orleans, Vegas, those are the best ones. All right, here we go. On this day in 1975, which Astros legend famously sprinted from second base to home plate to score the 1 millionth run in Major League Baseball history? It would not be Ryan.
It's not Biggio or Bagwell.
No,
because
that was way before their time. So to me, unless it was Ryan, and he, of course, hit, and he was on the bases as a pitcher in the National League, but also that time was he with the Angels. But I'm going to say Bob Watson.
Yeah, I'm going to say Bob Watson. I don't think Nolan Ryan sprinted anywhere, not even to kick Robin Ventura's ass. He just sauntered off the mound and let it come to him more than anything. So, yeah, I don't think sprint and Nolan Ryan go into the same sentence at all. So, yeah, definitely not Biggio Bagwell. It's Bob Watson. So let's see the answer here.
Yep. Here we
go.
Bob
Watson, known as the Bull. Watson scored at 12:32 p.m. Pacific, beating Cincinnati's Dave Concepcion by 2 seconds. Teammates in the bullpen were yelling for him to run as they tracked the race across the league. For the moment, he earned 1 million Tootsie Rolls and $10,000 in pennies. What kind of prize is that? 10,000 in pennies to have to lug around?
It's money.
And no, I'll take 10,000 in pennies if you want to give me 10,000 in pennies. I'll lug it around, but just can you cut me a check?
Just part of the, just part of the promotion.
Later become the first black GM to win a World Series with the 1996 Yankees. So this is the first I've ever heard of this race for the 1 millionth run. But based on the fact they were tracking that had to be really difficult back in 1975. It's not like you're checking your iPhone going, hey, the Pirates have a man on third. We got to push our guy across to get the 1 millionth run and $10,000 in pennies and 1 million Tootsie Rolls. But yeah, that's an interesting promotion, and today I learned something.
Pretty good player.
Yeah.
Astros Hall of Fame, was also a general manager, quiet and very distinguished. All right, there's the first quiz. We won and got that one right. Next one.
That's a lot of Tootsie Rolls too.
I'd be tied up for years.
Yeah.
Which current NFL quarterback famously wears eye black inspired by Anakin Skywalker's facial scar from episode 3, Revenge of the Sith? It's got to be Bo Nix.
No, it's Jackson Dart, I believe.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he has that one. You're right.
Yeah, he has
kind
like
of
the side.
Like yeah. It's got, okay, Jackson Dart.
I'm not like as well versed on Star Wars as some of the people in this building are, but I do recall seeing that in an article or something.
Yeah, you guys trying to throw stuff at me that I only know the names on the board, but not the question. All right, we'll say Jackson Dart, New York Giants. There it is.
Yeah, Giants QB is a massive Star Wars fan. At first, I was thinking of 9 of old JJ McCarthy for some reason with his eye black, and I was like, nah. But yeah, Jackson Dart, massive Star Wars fan. He wears a single vertical line of eye black over his right eye as a direct tribute to Anakin Skywalker. Earlier this year, he even blew up the Death Star during a promotional event at the Sphere in Las Vegas. While other QBs like Jalen Hurts or Bo Nix wear eye black for glare, Darts is purely about the Force. So there you go, Star Wars fans. Can't say we never did anything for you.
Yeah, he's kind of a fun player to watch. Throws his body around, athletic. Maybe the Giants, who knows if they can turn the corner.
I mean, him and Scattaboo definitely provided at least a little bit of a jolt to them last year. I don't know how long Scattaboo will allow himself to remain around, because he just feels like he's going to run helmetless into a brick wall at some point, and that's just kind of his style. But those two definitely provided a spark last season for the Giants, and then they had a really interesting draft. So yeah, I mean, maybe they're onto something here. But there you go.
The Miami linemen, 2 really top 10 picks.
Yeah.
All right, to the poll results. The first of 2. Rez, I'm reminding myself that way. If you were a Jedi Sith, what color would your lightsaber be?
Okay, so I was sitting there going, why are we talking so much Star Wars? I realized it's May the 4th.
Yeah, it's
okay.
to be the 4th.
That makes sense. Yeah. May the 4th.
Never got into that, but yeah, you're right.
That's why we're going with Star Wars theme. I know they have different meanings, and that's explained in the name. But as far as just pure looks go, I think I'm going Guardian Blue is what I would rock. But the Sentinel Purple is pretty cool looking too. So I'd be fine with either the blue or the purple. I'd pick the blue, but I'd be good either way. So
I put Guardian Blue. I just like that color. I always have.
I want to say the purple, and maybe I'm misremembering. And again, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I want to say Samuel L. Jackson was like, he got hired for the movie, and they asked him what he wanted his lightsaber color to be, or they told him, and either way, he somehow got around can I have a purple one? And they're like, sure. And I think I'm remembering that story correctly. And that's how the purple lightsaber was born. If not, then yell at me in the comments, Star Wars fans. But I feel like I've seen him explain that in an interview. And yeah, purple looks cool.
Very close finish with Sentinel Purple, Guardian Blue right next to each other. All right, there's the second poll coming up. I remembered, Rez. Which all-time Yankees era is your favorite?
None of the above would be mine.
Because you hate them?
When I was younger, I hated the Yankees like I hated the Lakers. Now I'm sort of indifferent because I'm just too old to care that much about it. But just they don't really interact with them very often. The teams that I root for are not crossing paths with the Yankees all that much, and they're not like they were in the late 90s when I particularly did hate them, and they were winning World Series after World Series, or at least it felt that way. But yeah, I mean, if I wanted to read up on and look back on and study up on history, I think I'm going Murderer's Row as well. I think that would be my pick to go and read a little history and follow along with Yankees lore. I think I'm going with all the big names and early years of Murderer's Row.
The 96 to 01 Yankees, I never had a problem with them, even though they eliminated the Rangers. Yeah, I kind of like Bernie Williams.
Mentioned why I had a problem with them. I know. They eliminated a really good Rangers team a couple of years.
Yeah, but Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, I liked those.
Yeah.
See, Joe Torre, as far as the manager. For me, it would have just been the history as a kid. I loved baseball. I used to read a lot of books, historical books, back in the Murderer's Row with Ruth and others, Gehrig, etc. But all of those, the 51 to 64, even though I was born in 59, I never really learned much about that one. And then Mantle's career, of course, could have gone longer, but the knee injury and other things got in his way. All right?
So what was your answer?
My answer is the Murderer's Row.
Okay.
Back in the day. And the answer for most everybody else when they had unbelievable teams. The 27 Yankees is one of the greatest teams of all time. All right? Thank you very much. Is that it, Rez? Did I do both of them? Thank you, sir. Thank you to Rez. Appreciate it. Michelangelo Flores, we appreciate your time. Thanks to Garrett Ross and Andrew Valade. And you, Craig, thank you. Have a great day. Nice to have another week. We've got a heck of a list of guests that we're piling up for Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We appreciate your time. I'm David SMOAK. This is The SMOAK Show on 365 Sports, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3.